Zachary Titus, welcome.
Hello.
Thank you so much for participating. Ava Sakari, I hope I said her last name correctly. She's playing basketball tonight, but I'm hoping she will be able to make it to the next meeting. First thing on the agenda is approval of the January 9th, 2025 meeting minutes.
Gotta find them.
So I have a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Kind of need the numbers, don't we?
the meeting minutes, not the invoices.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Got a second? Any discussion? We're approving the minutes from January 9th.
I'm gonna take a
Roll call because Melissa is remote.
from Rachel, right?
Excuse me. Ms. Monaco?
Aye.
Jeremy, did you have a chance to look?
Aye.
Okay. Megan?
Yes.
Melissa?
Aye.
Dr. Conti?
Yes.
Lisa Chen?
Yes.
Mimi? Yes. And Chris Campbell?
Same.
And Bob? Kuna?
Yes.
Doug Davidson?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
And Laura?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Martha?
Yes.
Mark Sullivan?
Yes.
And Zachary, we would normally include you as well. So you can say abstain since you weren't here.
Abstain, okay.
And the chair is I. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 in favor and 1 abstention. So we'll go on to the next. Did you find the numbers?
Yeah, so this $16,600 is it to Dorian Whittier?
No. First one is the Dorm Whittier invoice number 15, January 2025 in the amount of $18,000.
And I don't have it.
That's right.
Okay, I move that we,
You're the one because you're the school committee.
oh, I can't move it. Yeah,
So
that's right,
I
sorry.
move that we approve invoice number 15 in the amount of $18,000 out to Doran Whittier.
I'll second that.
Okay, this is school committee vote. All those in favor, Melissa,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Megan,
Yes.
Catherine.
Yes.
Chair votes aye, and that
Aye.
passes 5-0. Okay, and the next one is, I don't get who it's to. Oh, to pay. Okay, we need a motion to pay the invoice 250111, the amount of 16,600 to Tepe Architects.
So second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, Melissa?
Aye.
Aye.
Megan?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Chair votes aye, that's 5-0. Thank you.
And Zachary, I wanted to explain to you why we did a separate vote as her as chair for that, since you're new. Because we have the full school committee on this particular committee. It's not normal that we always do that. Usually, maybe 2 or 3 committee members might be on a committee like this. But since we have the full committee, we can go ahead and take those types of votes here instead of at a school committee meeting. Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure you kind of understood the process.
He's a quick study. He's
Yeah,
got it.
he's got it. Good. Okay.
You probably had it before.
Probably, but okay, I just wanted to kind of bring you along.
Ready then.
Yeah, so it's a learning experience, right? Next, presentation. We have, are we doing public right now? I don't see it here yet. Okay, it's down to number 7. Okay, project schedule.
So you'll be familiar with this slide, and what I'll point out is that the intention was to complete the preferred schematic report in March and deliver that to this committee. I think there's, a lot of decisions being made and about proposals being evaluated. The intention was to complete the PSR in March, which would allow us to complete the schematic design in August. What I'll say is that for every month that you push that out, it pushes that schedule out. And that's really the point of documenting this. And, we obviously just had a community forum last night. I think we're going to be talking about some additional community meetings as we go through this, but that is presently our schedule. So I will leave it at that unless there's some questions.
Okay. So next is the responses to the public from the last meeting we had. You want to go ahead?
Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm going to just read these and that way there'll be a matter of record. But so we took down 20 odd questions. I'm just going to go through these. Why is public comment limited to 15 minutes? Public comment is limited to 15 minutes in the first part of the meeting to allow for the agenda to be completed. A second public comment period is held at the end of each meeting. Second question was, has the project team completed underground parking in previous projects? And I think when they're talking about the project team, they're referring specifically to Tap Bay Architects and Dorn Whittier. Both firms have experience with parking in various forms, including structured parking. Please note the space proposed for parking under the field was only utilizing space that already exists. The project team is proposing capping the space with a flat surface that allows the field to be built. Was a feasibility study conducted? We are in the process of completing the feasibility study right now. The next question, number 4, was the floodplain status of the area considered when proposing underground parking? Yes, floodplains, as represented in updated FEMA maps, are being considered. The parking was proposed in an area of the existing building that is already excavated. See the previous question, number 2. Were permits obtained from the Conservation Committee for this project? Permits have not been obtained as an option has not yet been selected. Any required permits will be obtained through the issuing body's public process at the time required. An ANRAD process was conducted through conservation, which was initiated by the project team to reach consensus on the extent of wetlands and their boundaries on the site. Will there be additional meetings? Yes. Can nameplates be provided for all participants so the community can identify them? Nameplates will be provided for all future meetings, and I think we see those. Who is the contact person at Dorn Whittier for questions? That'll be myself, Terry Hartford, or Rachel Rincon, who's sitting to my right. Well, not you. To my right.
The end of the table.
Questions should be submitted to us through the project website. Question number 9 is, why is the building being moved closer to neighborhoods? And it says the SBC is evaluating several options, which include addition renovations at the existing school and new construction options, potentially utilizing Varsity Field. There have been several strategies studied to find a suitable location for the project, given the complicated nature of the existing building and site. Number 10, can the project team members, their roles and contact info be listed on the website? School building committee members' names and roles can be found on the BH building website, and contact details can be found on the Town of Burlington website. Questions to the design team and OPM should be submitted through the Contact Us feature on the project
For
website.
just 1 second. When
Yes.
you go, people, if you go to the website, again, you can click on the contacts, and then we provide a link also to the town so you can get to the town contacts too. So I just want to make sure you know, we tried to make it easy. Okay, sorry.
Number 11, have the top 3 designs been selected? If so, what is the reasoning behind the choices? The SBC is currently evaluating 5 different options. Additional information and a video describing the selection process can be found on the project website. If number 12, if the varsity field is moved, where would the temporary field be located? Burlington Public Schools has mentioned the idea of having varsity games at Marshall Simons Middle School during project development phases. This is a 1 mile, 4-minute distance from the existing varsity field locations. Upgrades to the site are planned to help host a variety of varsity sports. Different field locations will be discussed during this SBC meeting. Number 13, do any of the proposed designs for the high school property include new or additional entrances, exits? No, existing roadway entrances and exits remain as is. Can you provide details about the survey observed on site, the Cambridge Street teacher parking lot? Was this related to the underground parking proposal? We are not aware of any recent survey activity on the site related to the school building project. However, there were recently engineers on site to place and collect sound level monitoring devices, which help establish baseline noise data that is used in future development and engineering. Number 15, has housing students at 10 Corporate Drive been considered as an alternative to modular classrooms? 10 Corporate Drive has been eliminated as an option. Utilizing this building as a swing space would be considerably more expensive than modular classrooms as it is not built out for school use. Number 16, has the open space proposed for underground parking flooded in the past? If so, how will this be mitigated with the added weight of the parking garage? The school has no history of the space flooding. Number 17, will there be room for future expansion on the varsity field, considering its proximity to wetlands? Is this a prudent use of funds? Any building option is being designed for a student body of 1,100 students. Number 18, what are the potential impacts of the flood zone from excavation and site activities? The answer, work is routinely accomplished in flood zones and high groundwater sites. Construction activities that require monitoring of groundwater is specified and considered in specifications. Any habitable spaces within a flood zone would have very specific designs to protect the building in a flood event. Currently, all building options that support school operations are located outside of known flood zones. Number 19, when will an abutter only meeting be held? The public abutter meeting will be discussed and agreed upon during the SBC meeting with a target date of Wednesday, February 26th at 6:30 p.m. The meeting will likely be hybrid, similar to SBC meetings held in the school committee meeting room and WebEx. Number 20, does the $320 million budget include costs for demolishing the current school, building the new school, and constructing the stadium? Refer to the project, the answer is yes. Refer to the project finances tab on the project website for a breakdown of costs associated with each building option. Can you provide a breakdown of the demolition costs? Demolition costs vary depending on the building options. You need to refer to the project finances tab on the project website for a breakdown of costs associated with each building option. Has an independent third party assessed the project? Will there be such an assessment? An independent third party is used for cost estimating purposes only. If the 10 Corporate Drive option is chosen, has the value of the vacant land that will remain been considered? 10 Corporate Drive has been eliminated as a building option. So those were the questions that we took during that period.
Thank you, Terry. You
Yep.
saved my voice.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. So the next item is the thought exchange and general discussion on community forum.
Yeah, so thought exchange is something that you should all be familiar with. It's kind of an ongoing forum for people to express their opinions. And I just wanted to provide it. It then produces basically an AI summary, like an artificial intelligence summary. It takes everybody's thoughts. And I took this from, I probably did this Monday night at 6. And so, you know, it is kind of interesting how this builds up. And I just wanted to read this so that folks can hear it. And this literally will change daily based on the feedback that it's getting and the input that people are providing. So as of Monday night, the responses reflect a range of opinions and concerns regarding the proposed new high school and its impact on the community. Key themes include the necessity of addressing declining test scores and improving educational quality over constructing new buildings, the financial burdens and tax implications for residents, and the potential disruption to neighborhoods, particularly regarding the relocation of the football field. Some respondents favor new constructions for its long-term benefits and modern facilities, while others advocate for renovations to the existing structure to minimize costs and neighborhood impact. There are also calls for more detailed financial projections, community engagement, and consideration of environmental sustainability. I wish I could have written that, because I do think that's a relatively accurate representation of where we presently are. And so I thought last night was a good event, got a lot of people there, see a lot of similar faces here tonight. And, you know, there's a lot of questions out being asked, and we're trying to respond to them as quickly as we can. And that was really what I wanted to say about Thought Exchange, and was going to open it up to this group to see if folks wanted to discuss last night, if there's any initial feelings. I was throwing it out there.
I mean, I felt that it was very beneficial. I think that we heard a lot of, again, what we've been seeing in the questions from the community. And, through email and through the thought exchange. It's always nice to hear people in person. And again, I appreciated the people who showed up. I think it's important to be involved. Anyone else want to make a comment or?
I will. I thought there were a lot of points made last night that we need to consider. There were some people who really were focused on cost. There were some people who were really focused on the neighborhoods and the concerns of the neighborhoods. There were some people that were really focused on protecting the students from construction, et cetera. And I think that there are a variety of individual opinions about where we should go and how we should get there. And I think the task of this committee is to consider all of those things and work with members of the public in order to figure out what we can do that everyone can be at least partly happy about. As Eric likes to say, something about if you compromise, it means nobody's really happy, but you get somewhere. Maybe I didn't say that right, Eric, correct me if you'd like.
Far more eloquently than I would say it.
So I think that we learned a lot last night. And, there are very strong opinions and we need to work together to come up with something that will work. Because if we don't, we're not going to get a high school. So there we go.
Anyone else comment?
Maybe chime in. I agree with what you both said. I thought it was a very positive event. I was so pleased that it occurred. In addition to the takeaways mentioned by the two of you, I would add that I heard a lot of feedback about wanting more opportunity to have this kind of dialogue. So I just want to be on record saying I support that.
Yeah, and actually we are planning to have one more after we do an abutters only meeting or somewhere in between. We just don't know when yet. So we are going to try and do that. And I think, get word out in different ways. I mean, so, trying to figure out the best way to get more word out to the community because not everybody is on, Facebook, for example. Not, we don't have really paper newspapers anymore. So we're trying to get things out through BCAT and through, other various online papers. So it's a little bit of a challenge now that we're into the electronic world. You're trying to put things in, like True North and some of these other, place things. So it's, again, word of mouth, I think I know people in here in this room are very passionate. But the more, you see someone, I don't know, at the gym or playing pickleball or whatever you do, bring it up because I think everyone in town should know about it and there should be general conversation and people should be involved as much as they can because we're all eventually going to vote on it.
Has it, I didn't know there was going to be an abutters meeting only. Has a decision been made?
Well, we just mentioned it tonight that we thought we were going to try and do it at the end of the month. If
So
possible. Okay.
it is on the agenda and you have to vote on it.
Yes,
Got it.
we will have
So
to
I
vote. on
tried
it,
to
but-
introduce the concept of
Yeah.
it, but I will be asking you to vote to do that.
So I kind of let the cat out of the bag, but I
Oh,
know.
no, the cat's out of the bag.
So, but anyway, any other comments? Anyone online? Hands up. Oh, yes, Chris.
Yeah, I know.
Don't touch
I
that.
remember. So I wasn't at the last meeting. Unfortunately, it was my daughter's birthday, but I did watch that one and I watched last night's online too. And, I think it's really important, the messages that are out there and hearing them. Just looking at thought exchange from the report we have here to now, we've gone from 89 participants to 157, 67 thoughts to 138, 1,800 ratings to now 4,000 ratings. And those are the things that are important for these types of committees. And it's tough because many of us who joined, I had to look back, we started in September of 2023. These meetings are public, the information is out there. But again, that is what us as members know. And unfortunately, not everyone is getting that information, getting those communication, and is able to share that. So I think it's important for us as a committee to not take, some of this feedback personal. It's important that we receive it. We need to hear what the abutters, we need to hear the taxpayer. This is what the whole purpose of this is for. Yes, we're making a recommendation, but we want to hear from the town, because if we're not doing this collaboratively together and going through the steps, then we're not going to make it to any type of a finish line. And I think what I heard last night was a lot of general consensus, passion, caring, as there should be. This is a big step for this town. This is a lot of money for this town, for the taxpayers, and for anyone who's living in this town, because we're looking at such an increase. So there's going to be a lot of input. And so I've appreciated getting the multiple emails today and seeing that enthusiasm that I think a lot of us wanted a lot along the way. And it is our job, even though we feel we've answered these questions, unfortunately, to keep answering them and keep stating the things that, sure, they might be easily available, but when people are reaching out to ask the questions, we should be answering them. So thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Anyone else? Actually, we'll wait. All right. So if there's no more, from the committee, again, this is when I'm going to open it up for public comment. And again, we'll have 15 minutes of the public comment.
Take Millie first.
Yep. So you may come up. I know last night you wanted to say something, and you can be first in line
And I
tonight.
never thought I'd get to be an example of the last shall be first.
There you go, Millie.
There you go, Millie.
I appreciate that. Millie Nash, I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 3, and I live on Sunset Drive. And I have to first of all say thank you so much that at the presentation last night on the initial introduction, they had Sunset Drive marked, Arlington Road marked. It made such a difference. I wish they had been on every single one, but it gets hard to do that. But I think that made it easier. I think that without that, the audience would not have been able to respond quite so effectively, because you're trying to figure out where is that in relation to what I know. So thank you for that. The second thing that I want to say is I think the only thing that's a slight iteration of what was said last night, because I spent all day today honing this down, but that had to do with what Sharon Lohr said towards the end, that if we want this to work, because we all want to get the best possible system we have for educating and exercising our kids, although the ramps could be said to be an excellent exercise device, but I won't say that. Oops, I just did. Okay, but I think that there's a lot to be said for thinking of what this building needs, because Chris worries about Wildwood being left. I worry about that. The price of taking and getting rid of things, so you leave them and then you just have more problems. I think all of those things need to be considered. But I think that what troubled me as I went over everything, the modules were, I think, the reason that the scheme to have renovations had almost the same price as the others, because there were 30 modules. And I think that deep sixed that early, and I think that was a mistake, because I think the way we might accomplish what everyone wants is to do it bit by bit. What is the worst thing in the building? Fix it. Then fix the next thing, and bit by bit, you make this building better. This is going someplace, a little philosophy. I think that if the previous high school was in the architectural stage of cement, that this architectural period is the McMansion phase. And what troubles me is that I see little houses like mine, like most of my neighbors, that are perfectly good houses where 4 or 5 kids have been raised, is bought for $600,000, and within 2 months is gone. Everything is gone. And this is just, it bothers me, because it seems like this is a variation on the theme. We have a high school, which is, I looked at all the other plans, I thought this plan that we have looks really good. It's all together, it's organized. And I look at the McMansions on my street, some of whom have hoses out to the street because their $1.5 million house has water in the cellar. The person they bought the house from had fixed the problem, but they tore down the house. I remember the first town meeting in the new building.
I'm not, but go ahead and finish your sentence. I just want to let you know.
Can I just say, I really think we should do what past school committees have done. They have changed this building from having 600 kids to 300 by wisely using the space. We can use all the space here, I think, and we will have a cohesive building that will function. We won't have kids leaving classrooms. They didn't in Marshall Simons, they didn't at Memorial. And I think that we would end up with a building that this old school building may look better than it ever has for far less money. And if it's far less money, everybody would say, let's go for it. I think, thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Okay, anyone else? Yes.
Eating egg time or so.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll wait till you sit and talk. And I'm
I,
trying to be fair. I don't want to cut people off, but
that's okay. It won't take long. I did want to thank the committee. I thought last night was really good. It was nice to see people exchanging ideas. More people showed up than I thought. So it was good. It was good to see. So, I am in a butter and I live a hop skip from here. And, there was something that was said that at first it sounded very promising. It was said that the practice field could be a consideration for a new field. And there was a lot of buzz about it, like, oh, that could be something of interest. And then we found out today that it wasn't flagged by conservation. They would have to come in and do their testing. So right now, as is, it's not an option, even though we have, a lot of people all excited about it. So can you speak to this? And because I know there's a lot of buzz out there, like this could be the answer, and conservation is not there.
So I just want to, we will be addressing that later in the meeting.
Okay.
Okay. You want to do it now? Yeah, go ahead. We might as well. We don't normally
Cover the
answer
questions. I don't
questions
wanna-
during this, but we're going to go ahead and do it.
Just do it in the context.
Yep.
It's right at the
Go ahead.
beginning,
No, that's,
Let the public keep going.
Do you
It's
have
right
another
in the
question?
context of-
no, that's it. No, that was the one thing that I
Yeah,
thought.
no,
but
we
I-
are going to address it, and I think we
Yeah.
can do it when Chris starts his presentation. I totally understand the question.
I'm just
Add a
not
few
for
minutes to the 15.
a
Go ahead,
sleeve,
Chris.
I'm going
yeah,
to do it
not
4 hours.
for that.
It's going to be in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I stopped the timer and
Okay.
I'll let him answer, and then we want to make sure I'll give you the 15.
Yeah, I'd like to wait.
Oh, you want me to wait?
Yeah.
What's
I
your
do.
name?
Oh, wait, more,
We'll answer it in the agenda as part of the agenda, because we did plan to talk about it.
okay,
Okay.
all right.
Thank you though for your
My
question.
name is Maureen Carr,
Thanks, Maureen.
With a C or a K?
a C,
With 2 R's?
with 2 R's. Yes.
Of course it has 2 R's. What are you thinking, Terry?
I don't know. I have a car. It has 1.
Is there someone else in the audience that would like to come up?
They all want to hear the presentation.
Yes, and is there anybody online who would like to speak for public? Okay. So thank you. Oh,
Well, we got one.
one more. That's okay. We're good. We got some time. You have 8 minutes, but you only get 3.
Well, Millie still has something else she wanted to say.
Yeah, my name's Doug Farrell, Sunset Drive.
Doug, you said?
Doug
Yep.
Farrell,
Yep, thank you.
50-year resident. And last night I went to the meeting and learned a lot and spent a lot of time thinking about it. And I've got a personal thing that I want to say about it. I said, I looked at the different approaches and somehow we have to have the whole town agree with what's happening here to get the money. And as I went down the list, I started eliminating what works and what doesn't work in my mind, just in my mind. And I assume that a lot of the people in the town think the same way. The football field is a non-starter. Just leave it like it is. Don't do anything to the football field. It's not the right approach. Everybody that I've talked to about football field being torn down, they say, what a beautiful field. It's right on the road. Everybody, anyway, that's a non-starter, in my opinion. Parking lot for the students, as far as I'm concerned, and it's a floodplain. They might say it's not, but as I remember, that parking lot is flooded in certain high-rise times. So I would say the parking lot is out, okay? So now we're down, we've got the AR2 and the AR8. And I played around with both of those for quite a long time. And it's not easy when you don't do it all the time. But I played around with it quite a bit. And I narrowed it down that if AR8 is the approach that I would recommend that you people really start thinking about as one of the goals to aim at. And the only question I had on AR8 for someone to think about is why can't the auditorium be the original auditorium and work it into the AR8 project? You're going to tear down a perfectly good auditorium to build a new auditorium, and there's nothing wrong with the auditorium that's there if it could work into and it looks like it could work into the scheme. That's all I'll say.
Can answer that quickly.
Sure. Do you have another question?
I-
Or comment?
Yes, one more comment. Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe I went over my time already.
Nope, you got 1 minute.
The renovation, I know that's been thrown out. Well, not thrown out, but thrown out. In my mind, the renovation is the best approach, or the AR8. So we'll narrow it down that way. My background is commercial construction, HVAC. I still do consulting work on it, and I've done it for 55 years. And yes, the HVAC is, when I heard hot deck, cold deck, I remember that in the 60s when I was working. Sprinklers, yes, all those things, everything has to be done over. I understand that. But it's still a beautiful building and a nice site, and it's a coherent, tight building. You know, it's one thing. So my preference would be that this building is done over. And I really think you will get more of the town to agree with that in a consensus. I wholeheartedly think that the town, in the long run, and the last thing I'll say is, where did the 300 million come from? That number for renovation in my mind, when I started doing it, I threw 40 million for HVAC and all these millions, and I kept it. And the worst I could get to was like around 200 million. And so I'll stop there.
Yeah,
No,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah, that would be nice, yeah. And Carrie, did you want to make a comment? You said.
Chris can answer the AR8, the auditorium question.
Did Billy have something else before we go to Chris?
Oh, Millie, did you want to make another comment real quick?
You know what? I was just thinking what myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, at the next public presentation.
Come on up. There's still
Never
have
taken
3
off-
minutes left.
I've never taken
Public
off
comment.
my mask in public before in the last 3 years, so I hope you're noticing. I wish I had.
You're looking lovely, Millie.
I think it would help if we could have at the next presentation, a picture of what the buildings that we're still considering would look like. Because you look at the squares and rectangles, you have no idea. But I think if we could see, this is what each of these buildings would look like, so we can see how they blend in with what we have here, which again, might say, oh yeah, one is better than the other.
So funny you should say that, Millie. I don't know if you saw last night that we had the 3D models that were there that you could see in place in the different
Oh,
areas.
okay.
And so tonight it's right there.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Okay, but I was
If you-
thinking of like
Well,
photographs, not so much this, but like we could see, do they look like a New England colonial or does
Yes,
it
no,
look
I
like a
get what
Hard
you're
Rock
saying. Yeah,
Cafe?
right.
You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
doesn't,
No, I know, but
there are some of us who are very,
it's a visual thing. I get,
Thank
right,
you.
because I asked for this so I could have more of a 3D idea, 'cause
That's
looking at things
better
on flat
than-
papers.
We could
difficult.
replicate girls Latin school.
say that again?
We could replicate girls Latin school and just put it right here in Burlington.
I
Thank you.
would like that. I might even be tempted, but try not to tempt me. I'm trying to be a good citizen. And thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to
If that's the end of comment
That's-
period, we
yeah.
can just move
Yeah,
on.
move on.
And
Thank
Chris
you
can
all.
just address those now.
Okay, so we'll go on to number 8, which is Tape Architects, the project update, and discuss any, project update. Just go on with that.
Oh, yeah. See if you want. Yeah, I find it easier.
Okay,
Probably.
all right, so last night we had shown this slide and I think it not only, as the public commenters have noted, but we're trying to show roads that are nearby and kind of the context in a closer up view. But also kind of orient to distances. I think it's important to know how close different elements are to the building so that you know when we talk about things, we're all in the same context. And so, yeah, there's a lot of abutters within 300 feet, which is the orange line. And so it's important for this committee to understand the context of those who are here to speak to you. So that's one reason we did this slide for you. We talked about this slide last night, which is the section through the building. And then, you know, when we tear down the middle of the building, I think that that's all the options on the table right now are consistent in the fact that they address the middle of the building, which is the worst offending part of the building currently.
Chris, could you explain, because I don't think everybody understands the fact that the middle of the building truly cannot be renovated because of the ADA.
Yeah.
Can you maybe explain that?
Yeah, so the existing building, you can actually see it in this this image here, has are you doing that?
That's me.
I was like, that thing is not moving like I a little worried there for a second, but yeah, so where it says media center up there, the media center is actually 2 different heights, and then there's a third and a fourth height within that middle section, and there's actually 9 total heights of the first floor, all separated by roughly about 5 feet. And then the second floors that accommodate or that are in coordination with those, there's 3 sections of the building that have a second floor. We actually gave this diagram out last night and we've shown it before, but those second floors are also at different heights, one from another, and all 5 feet stepping down the hill. Which means if you ask our student rep or any other student that's in the building or has ever been to this building, if you want to go from one hall to the other hall on the second floor, you have to go back downstairs and back upstairs. And there's no continuity between the second floors of the building, and which means they're not handicap accessible one from the other. And also all the ramps in the building make that section a particular challenge for the ramp life of the right accessibilities. And so go ahead.
Can I just add a little bit,
Yeah.
just for clarity? Those of you who've walked through the building, if you come in by the cafeteria and you walk down to the auditorium, we call that one of the streets. There are 2 of them, one on either side of the library. And the slope, back to your geometry days, the slope of those streets is too steep. So renovating them would be extremely difficult. And Chris, why don't you explain how you would if you had to renovate those? How, if you had to renovate the streets, what would you have to do?
You need to flatten them out a little bit. They're not that off from actually ADA, but they are off. So if someone came in with their the measuring device to measure that, when you're doing a building renovation of that nature, you have to do everything. I was actually last night noticing that all the doors, so handicap accessibility on doors, you have to have a certain dimension away from the actual handle of the door on both sides of the door. And if you walk through almost any classroom or any room in this building, you can't, like, that doesn't exist. And so we have to start ripping out more things to just make space for the ramps, we'd extend them, or we would put in lifts maybe. That's an option you could do too, like little, like 5-foot little lifts and things like that. And so there's various ways to do that, but they all equate to a lot of money and a lot of intervention for the project. And the other part about the middle is that all the classrooms in the middle don't have windows, like especially on the first floor. But the second floor, they look inward towards the media center. They don't have natural light in them. And then the middle wing on both sides doesn't have windows. So it's not an inconsequential effect on students in the building, and the research that talks about natural daylight and views from classrooms and the learning increase that happens with that. And so the middle of the building is really kind of a big problem. And so what we've identified is if we could get rid of the middle of the building and start over from there and keep the top end, which is on the right, I keep saying it's the top end, but it's the highest end, as some form of renovation, in the lower end, which is the gyms and fitness locker rooms, things like that. And then deal with the middle of the building either through an addition or through some intervention like we've shown before. Obviously not ideal for some of the butters, but that's kind of the idea that we're talking about. And the reason why the middle of the building, really, you'll spend far more money trying to correct that than if you tear it down and just start over with something new in the middle. And that's what the analysis has told us. And to the question earlier about where the dollars and figures come from, those come from a third party outside cost estimator that looks at these kinds of diagrams and the things we've shown them. They estimate high school projects all over the state and know what it costs to do the work nowadays. And so I think we got a pretty solid lead on the cost of renovating a building, and there's a lot of things we don't know too that we won't know until we start. And that's the challenge with renovations. You need to carry more contingency because there's just a lot of things buried that we can't find until you start taking it apart. So that's this diagram.
And I think Dr. Conti wanted to make a comment, and I did.
Well, yeah, I did, because I think the educational philosophy that's into this design, yes, it's a solid building, but where we were sitting was an open classrooms, because in the late 60s and 70s, they changed that. So Mrs. Monica, when you talked about replacing this with Girls Latin, my mother is a proud graduate of Girls Latin. The more traditional design with classrooms would actually have more future proofing than this design here. We'd be
Exactly.
renovating a building that was built for a particular instructional strategy that was popular in the late 60s and 70s.
They had windows,
Which isn't effective, absolutely. So
was a
so
good design.
it's not just about renovating the systems, it's about future-proofing the building and sort of maximizing the instructional landscape of what exists here. So yes, we have to bring everything up to code, but we'd be bringing up to code an educational model from the late 60s and 70s that I don't think has held on well, or it reflects sort of what we currently know about student learning, personalization, sort of where the adjacencies should be. So the building would have to be fundamentally changed. And at that point, it's different. So I don't know what we would need to do structurally, but instructionally, this building wasn't designed for what we would expect, education to look at now. And again, Girls Latin would have been a much more traditional and future-proofed design. Again, 50% of the classrooms, we'll keep going back saying, don't have natural light in them here. And again, they were designed to be big open spaces with open classrooms. And we put up temporary walls. The soundproofing isn't great. It's just not something that I think would impact the educational part of the project well.
And then I also wanted to make a comment too, when we were talking about, I know the theater or the auditorium, I mean, it's very lovely, but it's also not compliant either. So no matter what we do, even if we kept the theater somehow with one of the options, it also has to become ADA compliant, which is going to cost money as well. it's too steep. I think there was some issues with the stage for people who, may need to have special ways to get on the stage if they're one of the participants in the play. So there's a lot that has to be done in that auditorium as well. I mean, again, stuff that we've all been looking at for the past 14 plus months. So anyone else that wanted to?
I was just going to say the exact same thing, Catherine.
Okay.
Get the words out of it.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. Did you want to go ahead and continue then?
Yeah, happy to. Okay, so this is the portion that I can address the commenter's question. Got your name.
Maureen Cotter.
Maureen.
R with 2 R's in a C. So yeah, so last night the question was asked about the wetlands, and I had answered fairly definitively that we had done this ANRAD process that captured the entire site. And then today I went back and was like checking the records, and the actual NRAD process stopped right on this edge. So this, sorry, you can't see that. Let me see if I can mark on this and you see that. There you go. Is that better?
Can't see
I
it.
can't see it. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there you go.
It's line right here.
It had stopped on that edge and then carried around all the way there, but everything else was included. So, what I always like to tell my staff and people around me is that we endeavor to do the best we can and give all the information we have. The reason I had said that is because the blue lines you see on that screen are overlays from GIS, which is a pretty reliable for this phase of the project datum point for identifying wetlands. We typically on projects don't even get ANRADs done at this phase of the project, but because of the complicated nature of this site, I had asked if we could get one done because we needed some help figuring out where buildings would go. And then the option of, well, is there some relief for the neighbors on the field? And we said, well, let's look at that area. We overlaid the GIS data for wetlands, which again is fairly reliable. It's not going to be too far off in our experience. And when I was reviewing drawings in our office and in preparation for that ANRAD process, my mind had remembered that. And so I thought that was part of the ANRAD process. So it's a mistake on my part. Fully own it, fully admit it. I apologize for misrepresenting how far that had gone. The implications are that this is still a viable option, but if we decide to do something of this nature, just like any other project, if we were to do something at AR5, if we were to do AR2 or AR8, we would still go through a process of, because of the wetlands, they're all over the place. You've seen that map here. We still have to go through a process of a notice, an NOI with Conservation Commission. You have to go through the process of reconfirming and identifying. We just did the ANRAD up front on those options for everything else. And I did have a conversation with the conservation agent today and apologized to her for misrepresenting the work that they had done. So just fully trying to take responsibility for that overstatement, but also clarify that just because the flagging hasn't been done does not mean this option is off the table. It doesn't preclude us from looking at the option. It just means that if we go this route, we need to make sure we follow up with conservation and do the proper documentation of it. And the reality is that field size and shape is pretty much what's already there right now. We would just be looking to add the stands and the concession and things like that. So it's a very good comment. I really appreciate the public for holding us accountable and making sure that we report the correct things. And so I hope that answers that question. And I maybe pause, see if there's any questions, and then just go through the.
Just one follow-up. So
Yeah.
how recent was the datum that you used? Because I mean, that, for the folks that aren't read into this, Maps was my life for 24 years, but if it's a very recent datum, that means the data is very good, it's very accurate. So if you could give like a 10-second clip on that of just, hey, that's how we can confidently say we think this will work.
Those datums are pulled within the last 4 months. We pull the data regularly and we keep checking it. And so that's how we derive.
Thanks.
Ms. Monaco?
Back a few weeks ago, I was wondering if it was buildable, which I asked you, and I checked with the chair of conservation, and he checked with someone else. And they came back saying that possibly it was, but then I think you did further investigation and found out that it really isn't because maybe it was filled or whatever. But putting a field on it seemed to be an okay
Yeah.
option.
Yeah. So what you're going to run into in this area, I think there was a comment last night about walking across the field and your sneakers get wet and
Right.
things like that. What's going to happen with this, and we've run into it actually I mean, believe it or not, New England projects have very poor soils most of the time. I've not run into a good soil project yet. But there's likely a lot of organics. What organics means is just organic things from nature falling and then decomposing and creating soil. But that's not suitable for bearing of building elements like foundations, footings, things that build vertical components. But with the right with the right design, you can put fields on there. You can do that all day long. There already is a field over there. And so the nature of the soils is more conducive for fields and vertical development. Horizontal development. But I would not, and the setbacks and all of that stuff, I wouldn't venture to put a high school building over there. And the floodplain kind of comes right near there. If you get high water and a flood, it's not great for a turf field, but the turf field would also survive. So I think that's kind of the thinking around field versus building.
Thank you. And Ms. Simon?
You just referenced the flood zones, and I know that there's recently been new floodplain maps put out by whichever organization does that. And I would love for this to be a realistic option, but we also are pretty sure that there's going to be more flooding. And, 20 years from now, are we going to still feel confident? I mean, I'm concerned about building where we know it's fill that used to be wetlands. And, it may be at this moment, and maybe for the next 10 years, it's a realistic kind of place to build. But I'm comfortable, building a new building where the current stadium is. Not that I'm choosing that option right now, because the field it's gone through a number of things. It has no toilets. There's a lot of deficits right now. I'm sorry, it's more than halfway through its life cycle, the turf field. It doesn't have toilets. It's got areas that could be improved. I'd love to find another place that would work for everyone. But I am concerned that we not build something where there could be floods in 20 years where we have very expensive retrofits again. And I'm glad to hear you don't see it as a place to put a building, which you already had figured out. But could you comment on the new floodplain maps and why you still think that it's a realistic? I'd love to find a good place to put it that's realistic. So can you explain that a little more?
Yeah, okay. So here's this is the actually a very, there's a lot of information on this slide. And for most people, you just need to sit with it for a little bit and read through the legend and understand the various parts. We did this slide, and there's another version here where we added in the orange, or sorry, it's yellow buildable area. But what I want to draw the attention to is this purple bit here. This is based on the new FEMA maps that are, I'd say yet to be official, but pretty imminent. And this is a 10% chance of annual flooding. So there's, it's not nothing, but it's 10%. And
I'm sorry, you said annual flooding?
annual flooding.
Okay.
And then you can see that geometry relative to this area here, which is where we're talking about, sorry, that area there, which is what we're in the whole area. Bob, if you could just do the whole area. There's the practice field down in the sort of lower right-hand portion of that shape, and then other unmarked fields and some discus and track things. But you can see that that shape comes into that area a little bit. But most of the options we've shown for the field placement as currently put out there as options are outside of that. And I can go back to that up above and show you, we don't have that overlay right now, but this is what kind of drives all of those decision points.
Thank you. Okay.
And yeah, so just, I'll keep going through.
Yes, please.
So we did a series of 3 of these. This is one. Here's another. This one, that floodplain would probably get really close to the edge in here. So maybe that's makes this one less ideal. The difference between these is really the location of the proximity of the stands to parking. And I think that would be a conversation should you choose to try to investigate this idea a little bit more. And then this one, which is obviously the furthest away from the closest parking spots, but almost identically on top of the existing location where the practice field is. There would be not a ton of modification with that particular location. And then we overlaid a practice field on the student lot, and it wouldn't work in this configuration without redoing the roads or something like that and getting stands and all the things that are required. So again, the exercise was to provide an alternative look of where fields could go. Obviously, like as I said before, if the committee wants to continue to evaluate this once the snow is melted and gone, we would do the official flagging process so that we can get you more specific data. But I think the GIS is pretty reliable for this phase of investigation. There's actually when that field was redone, there was an order of conditions already put on it. And so we kind of know roughly, but that's too old to rely on for current permitting. So we had to redo it anyway. So yeah, that's the conversation. That's, again, my apologies for the overstatement. We also have shown this slide, I think previously, just around lighting. The new way we do lights is pretty good in terms of cutoff. I think the closest neighbors on Sunset, which again, we could probably redo these to relabel all the slides to help everybody understand, but Sunset is off to the right where the 8 is, right below the 8 in this diagram. And those folks currently there's lights on the side of the building that face their street and their houses. Leaving last night, it was still pretty lit. I don't know what it's like daily and nightly living over there, but my experience is that those lights seem bright. And if that edge of the building goes away and we do something like this, I think it will likely produce a slightly darker edge most of the time, but this is how we do light engineering. This would occur on your project if this continued to be on the table. One thing to note is, and I was talking about it last night, but the infill component of supporting a field is the same infill component that would happen with any new build or addition option, or if you make it a parking lot or whatever you decide to do with the space in the middle of the building. There's currently that void space that's under the middle of the building that we had previously said, well, let's just take advantage of that. It's already dug out, make it something. And I think initially that was my response to concerns of the field producing a desire for people to want to park in the neighboring streets. And so it's like, well, let's just add more parking on the site. And this is one easy way to do it. Now recognizing the concerns and the things around that, it doesn't have to be parking, but whatever we do, we got to either fill it with structural fill soil or put a cap on it and allow it to continue to be storage or parking or something. So there's a cost there no matter what the option is. And that's part of this next phase of evaluation and cost estimates, is to really hone in on that detail.
Ms. Monaco.
Chris, I just want everyone to have the opportunity to fully understand that space. the space exists now.
Yes.
Is it a concrete space? Does it have a floor?
Oh, yeah.
Does it have walls? And does it have a ceiling?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, and the building is set on top of it. So it's not a space, no matter what happens with it, it's a big concrete box, right? But you can get in and out of it because there are doors.
Mhm.
So whether you simply take the middle of the building down, or do something else there, that is there. It's not gonna cost us money to dig that hole or pour concrete. It's already there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted everyone to understand that.
But also know that if we do one of the renovations, the ad renos, there is a cost to make that area suitable for a building. And so I think what we need to do in this next round of estimating is kind of put site costs related to that particular portion of the work and clearly identify it, because I know that people are looking at the cost of a field versus the cost of parking
Right.
versus what we would look at it from a civil perspective and a structural perspective of what we need to do those ad renos, because there's going to be a building on that. And so I don't think we've done a great job of doing that. But, you know, this is a fluid, situation. And I think, we need to respond to the public and clarify for all of you that there is a cost associated with it for all of the options. And that cost is considerable.
Thanks.
Thank you. Go on, Chris.
We did the sound data. What we're trying to do, I guess first I want to say is that, when the neighbors currently hear football games, bands, I think we had comments last night about, excited folks coming with cowbells and things. And that sounds like a great high school football game to me. But for the neighbors, it may not be great. And so I just want to acknowledge that the scientific overlay of data and assumptions is not going to precisely answer the question or address the felt outcome of their experience. And so the only thing I can do is provide data that is supported by engineering analysis and things like that. And then from there, it's like, can you still hear a dog bark from a house a quarter mile away? Maybe. I don't know. But like, these are all things that we're trying our best to present the data that we have. And so we did the sound analysis, the background sound analysis. I believe if that report from the acoustician isn't available yet, it will be on the website. And it's based on scientific research, scientific data points that are with the Mass DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, which sets out rules. In part, their job is to control and help people have a quality of life wherever they are. That includes all things environmental, including sound. And so for any project, we actually have to do this analysis, because if we add building components like HVAC or other things, we can't increase background noise levels by 10 decibels on site. And but interestingly, the DP doesn't consider short duration like events as part of their analysis, and this is kind of written out in the report. And so the best we can do is analyze what's there now and then make projections. Obviously, if we get down the road and this is more studied and we're in a football season, I'm happy to bring the report, the test equipment back out, and we can get another data point from an actual game and do that work too. But it's all just layers of information. And so what we try to do here is just say, based on scientific logarithmic calculations on how sound dissipates over distance of time, using some assumptions on crowd noise and things like that during the game, which are momentary brief. The band, maybe not so much. Cowbells, maybe not so much. But this is the data that we have. So I think that using this, we were able to say that, you know, at a distance of around 300 feet from the source, which is on the south side, or on the, I'm sorry, it's not, it's south in this view, the bottom side where the arrow's pointing, Sunset Drive is down there. And then on the top side, there's a few houses at the 300-foot range on Arlington Street Road. And so at that point, the noise appears to be that it would dissipate to around the 60 decibel range if you know, these calculations as a model. So the decibel range for levels of noise, the 60 decibels is considered moderate, normal conversation or dishwashers. 50 is moderate rainfall and so on. And then the 70s would be like traffic or vacuums. And so the background noise that we collected was the high average was in the 60s and the low average was in the upper 40s to 50s, right? So that was over a 1 week period, 2 week period. And so not conclusive, not meant to by itself give you a decision point, but it's just an analysis to say, maybe the impact is something like this, maybe it's more. And these abutters have concern, and this is meant to help kind of get everybody oriented as to what scientifically noise actually affects. And then from there, everybody has feelings and opinions and experiences.
Ms. Simon?
I just want to clarify that it's my understanding that you were going to do a background noise survey, and that's what you were just reporting on, that you did that for a week? And that those numbers that you are what you found in that 1 week period?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And that's the,
Sorry, Doug.
So just for transparency's sake and to make sure I understand, I think I do. But I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about this, and misunderstanding in these cases then leads to.
Hold on 1 second. Gail, can you move the mic a little closer to Doug?
You can touch it.
One of the mics.
No, I have the power.
Gail touched it. It wasn't me.
Gail did it.
So the background noise test is, it is what it says. We're not looking for what does a football game sound like. It doesn't translate into what a loud noise is. It is what's the baseline sound in this neighborhood on a normal day at different times of the day. What's our starting point? And so that's the beginning of this. So it in no way was meant to say, so see there, a football game's not that loud. There are, I believe, significant kind of numbers out there that are well accepted about how loud a football game is. You showed us that chart.
Yeah.
How loud an airplane is at a certain distance off the ground, how loud a football game, how loud a band is, a baseball game. It's pretty extensive. And so then that's what they would build from. So they wouldn't necessarily, it's not to say, oh, see, so it's not that loud from here, because they're not trying to mimic a football game. They're starting with what's the baseline noise? How much noise does this building and this campus create? And then from there, what happens when you add things on top of it? So I just wanted, because I've had several people say, well, they're trying to sneak it past us and they should have done those tests during the football game. That's not the purpose of that data point.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's a design data point. So as I said earlier, when you get into construction and you start layering in mechanical systems and all of the other things that we would put on a building, whether it's an ad reno or anything, a new build, we have to do that background noise analysis and then engineer all of the mechanical systems and everything so that we can show that we're not increasing the background noise level by a certain threshold. And that's the response that we need to have for building mechanical systems and things. So we have to do the analysis anyway, and it's based on background noise data. It's not an analysis to tell you how loud a football game is. It's not an analysis to guarantee, a rock band won't come and play and make a lot of noise, right? So it's not meant to be that. I don't want to misrepresent that it is that. I just want to say all we've been trying to do is say that we got the background noise level. And I think most people would probably characterize this neighborhood, as I've driven around and walked around, as a very quiet neighborhood. And this site has a certain level of noise to it. And so we just wanted to understand what that is.
Sure.
And yeah, so we're not trying to tell people how they should feel, not trying to do any of that. All I want to say is, as the devices out there measure, we report that out, and then using the charts and data that you mentioned of like airplanes this much, football games are this much, we can then put a data point on a map and say, as just air flows, as acoustics travel, the logarithmic equations show that this is what the sound might be like if the source was this at a certain point, right? And that's all it is. It's just an analysis data point. It doesn't tell anybody how to feel about it. Doesn't tell anybody they're wrong or right. It just is a thing to analyze. So
A baseline.
Yeah, so
I
the,
did, one thing. Was there someone in the audience? I hope we answered your questions on
so
the sound.
we had the devices put out there on Friday, January 10th, and they were collected on Thursday, January 16th. Chris mentioned this report. We don't typically put something on the website until the committee has had the opportunity to see it. So that will get put up on the site tomorrow. It's a baseline sound monitoring report. So that will be there for folks to see. But, I think what Chris is reflecting is the results of that report as opposed to the report itself.
Thank you. So I just want to confirm, so this was done for Fox Hill too, right? This is something that's done.
So what would have been done with Fox Hill, I don't know when they would have done it, but certainly as part of their design, and in particular as they go into design development, which is considerably further along in the process, they will have to do sound monitoring to determine what those levels are, to see if they need to do any attenuation to dissipate some of that noise and put in some mitigations. So it's not typically done at this stage, but given what has been proposed, I think Chris made the right suggestion to let's figure out what the background noise is presently.
Mhm. Okay. Anyone else?
it also, as just a matter of design course, will come into play when you're thinking about window design and interior acoustics. If you were in an area that had train line running near you or something, the background noise data helps us understand how to tune the windows and the facade so that it's not distracting on the inside of the building for the students that are learning. And so it's an important data point all around. So this diagram is just showing the sort of elevation change that this was taken at the southwestish portion of the site, looking pretty much if this was Sunset Drive and the adjacent building here. Not a ton to describe here, but trees, the logarithmic scale that we talked about assumes just open air, straight shot of sound. There's no things to block or to, collect or dampen sound. Trees do that, and so does earth and other things. And so all of that has an effect. And so there's that. We talked about this slide and this slide. I'll just briefly mention again that the idea of buildable area is really important on this site. And that's why we were trying to do these diagrams, because it helps you understand just how challenging it is to think about where, even if you said let's do a renovation only. And we needed to house students in modulars at some point, and that was going to be the solution. Just finding a place for enough modulars to put kids in to create enough space to do a renovation piece by piece by piece becomes very difficult, just because there's, everywhere you turn, there's looks like space, but then there's a hill, or there's not space, or there's parking, or, looks like space, but there's a hill. And so all of those are components that you not only have to deal with as a temporary school condition, but also as we've talked about, the permanent school condition also has to do with the site prep, which is what Terry and I were talking about previously. With that, I kind of want to dive deeper into the options so that we can talk, I think, more about that. We promised it last night, and we've looked at these quite a bit. So I'm just going to go into AR2 first. And again, the white portions of the building are the existing to remain portions and be renovated. This tan portion is the portion of the building that would be added on. That's the site plan. AR2, this is the floor plan itself as it is right now. The area in the red box is the portion of the building that has the gyms and things in it. Those are, there's extra of these if anybody in the audience wants them to. These, that renovation portion, that, but the real sort of complication of this one that we should just make sure is understood by this committee is the existing auditorium is in sort of this zone right here. That just put on screen in the circle. And in order to do this phased addition, we need to take the existing auditorium and music offline, demolish it, and then build out everything from that lobby space to the north, to the right-hand side, which allows us to then take the kids and student and faculty out of the middle of the building, move them into the newly constructed classroom facilities, do the demolition of the middle of the building fully, and then you would follow on and rebuild the auditorium, the admin, the cafeteria, and the upper floor programs that are on top of that. And, the big problem, I guess, with that, or the con of that, is that you would end up needing to find a location for the auditorium and music programs for the entire duration of the project, because that is the last phase of delivery on the project.
Through the chair, and I'm sorry, I was delivering stuff. You said this one is a 48 month, so it's a 4-year.
I believe this one is 48 months, yes.
This is listed as 36 months on the website, and you've talked about 42 months in something you gave us, but in the.
I think we've been updating that, so we may need to
you need
revise
to
what's
update
on
it
the
on the,
website.
yeah.
Okay.
That's a question too.
But where do, I see that the loss of the BECC space, where would that be relocated to during construction? How would that work? Because that's separate and needing to be,
Seeing this, loss of music.
yeah. Loss of music, classrooms, cafeteria, and BECC during construction, BECC to be offsite.
The integrated preschool.
Yes,
Yeah.
preschool. So how would,
So yeah, BECC is over.
Like parking bench.
BECC is over,
Like 21.
like over here.
Yep.
And so what we were saying is, in the future, BECC is supposed to, like what we've been showing so far, is that it gets built out in the cafeteria, the existing cafeteria area. And that becomes an entire expanded and better BECC facility. And so there's this moment where you've built this wing, including the media center and everything. You demolish the entire middle of the building. And at that point, you can keep the cafeteria running in the upper portion and have kids just kind of go back and forth between the cafeteria and the building. You can also do lunches in classrooms. There's a lot of different ways to do that that we've worked on multiple projects for. But the impact is that the BEC center, the center of the school's got to go. And so either we go without a cafeteria for the students and we renovate that portion immediately and move them from one spot to the other before we demolish. And then that puts an impact on lunch operations for the high school, or we say, let the lunch operations stay as they are and we'll create a pathway between the addition and the lunch. And then BECC's got to find somewhere else to go so that we can work through that.
Do you have an idea of where that might be?
I don't, and that's why we're trying to raise it as a con.
Dr. Conti, do you
But,
have no idea?
Not right now, we're struggling with them.
so I think this is for Eric, but remind me if I'm correct, but isn't our cafeteria like the hub for the other schools, the lunch currently?
No, not really. We have,
We have a district,
freezer.
we have a district freezer, but
Okay,
all of
that's
our
what it is.
deliveries and all of our schools have their own kitchen, functioning refrigerator and freezer. So no.
So it's just that,
If we happen to take a large delivery, we would take it at the high school
what I
and then
thought. Okay.
distribute it. But
Alright.
daily functions happen at each building.
Ms. Simon?
Just for people who are looking at these lists of pros and cons on this sheet, at the bottom of the cons, it does say unfavorable orientation. So that for people who aren't familiar with that term, that's around sustainability and which orientation the building is in, south, north, south, east, west, has to do with energy efficiency, about daylight in classrooms, about glare, things like that. And I don't know, Chris, if you have something else to add, but that's the issue. And many of these options are not great for for orientation for those things, but this is one of the options that's not good for that issue, if that's a concern, which it is for some people. Thank you.
That's correct. So, yeah, so it's just about how light travels and it's solar heat gain, glare, things like that, that as the sun is lower in the sky and shining at your building, windows that face east and west are going to have a bigger variant range of heating and cooling that's required to offset what the sun is naturally doing. And in order to minimize that, then what you end up doing is putting shades on the side of the building or different things on the inside, which adds cost and adds operational complexity. And so the tried and true optimal solar orientation is that the long axis of the building is actually running east and west so that the windows are facing north and south. And that becomes the sun is higher, then the sun can't penetrate into the building as far when you don't want it to. And it can't accidentally heat your building. So that's the sustainability answer around why that's important. But it's not like, if you have the option to do it optimally, you should. But in this site, you're constrained in so many different ways that we're lucky to have options to do anything. So that's kind of the nature of that comment.
Well then, Dr. Conti?
And to Chris or to Terry with this is, with both ad renos, so I guess the question would apply to both. Because the site really only has one way in and one way out, you're talking about phasing the building, but getting people in and out of the campus, because students would be driving by a construction site, because you'd be building that front part, so that you'd have to create some safety. I think some of the questions or concerns from abutters was also, are you going to open up other ways to egress the site? If this is a 4-year project and we have construction equipment that you're going to need to stage and having kids come and go from the site, just want to, it might be that we might need a temporary way of getting kids in and off the site that's separated from the construction. And again, I know you talked about phasing in the building, but I'm sort of looking at the site and saying, how do we get 8 or 9 buses in? And
100 parents.
I know Mark's online. Mark, how many cars?
200.
Student cars, 170.
And then faculty cars.
Well, faculty, including all the other programs. I mean, you have a lot up there because it's not just high school faculty up there.
Like 420 total.
So again, I think sort of to Megan, to your point, it's not just about looking at program in the building. It's the logistics of getting sort of kids in and out. And because again, the entrance is on Cambridge Street, in that it almost like, is it like an hourglass that the site sort of seems to me to kind of narrow by the student parking lot and then open back up.
Yeah.
And we have to get everyone through that.
Yeah.
That bottleneck. So it'd be great to see, in addition to the shuffling of space, what the potential entrance and egress could be. And then how we fit about 400 vehicles in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with any of the ad renos, and there's slides well into this presentation that talk about a potential construction and delivery method.
Okay.
And there's two types. There's CM at risk, construction manager at risk, or design bid build. Anyone in this business will tell you with an option like this, we're going to want to CM at risk. It's just a much more it's a better contracting method when you have a very complicated phasing structure. And if we had this as our preferred option, this would go to the CMs and they would have to break down by phase where everything would go, because it's not simple and it might include moving elements on the site, changing traffic patterns, having off-site parking, lay down areas somewhere else. Like the construction manager is going to have to figure that out based on the phasing that we give them for the building. They then have to figure out what are they going to do to ensure traffic flows for everybody, students, teachers, administrators, and themselves. And I can tell you, it's going to be very, very complicated. There's just no getting around it.
Ms. Monaco.
So I'd like to point out too, that every single school day, there are, maybe Mark knows the number, but there are many, many vehicles of parents waiting 45 minutes in line to pick up their kids. And right now they come up, they go into the circle. When the kid comes out, they drive out and go back. But that line extends, for a long time and way back. And where are those parents going to go? And you can't not let them, because some of these kids, like one in particular that I know, gets picked up the minute school gets out, father's first in line, and drives to Norwood to be there for skating. So, you've got to be able to accommodate these parent pickups as well as everything else.
Oh, thank you. Anyone else want to?
I have
Chris.
two small ones. One is, I've noticed on two of these, where the bus routes have changed, which is a normal flow the opposite way. I'm guessing that's on purpose, but I just want to check because that would be a big change where it's one way coming out. And now it looks like the arrow's going in and around.
Yeah, so one of the site logistics working group, we've been going back and forth on the directions. I think don't get too hung up on direction arrows at this moment, but just know that what we're talking about mostly is trying to figure out ways where we can accommodate all the things that have been just said, but separate buses and cars. I've come to this site a few times and seen the mess that happens when the buses and the cars are trying to all do different things.
In an accident yesterday.
Happens.
And so
Bumper
I
cars
think
out
that
there.
the ideal way to do a high school is you can early on in the entrance onto the site, somehow early kind of separate the buses and cars if possible. And so all of these schemes are showing like different variants on how we might think about that. But the final layout of that, you can still do this exact what's on the screen here without having buses go the opposite direction. They could go the way they always have been going. And so, yeah, that's the short answer, long answer to that.
I just wanted to make a statement too, because I mentioned it at the meeting last night, but we talked about working groups. So again, in addition to the meetings that we have here, how many different working groups we have? You mentioned logistics. I know we have the educational one. We have,
There's
I'm trying to remember how many we have.
I think right now there's currently 5 or 6 that.
Right, and we meet pretty, frequently to discuss all these things and then kind of pull it in and help figure out the design of everything and making sure that we try and incorporate all of that in the end for the end product. So again, I want to just kind of catch some people up, on what the working groups are and what they do, and that they do meet frequently, and it's all part of the process.
And we have a portion in every meeting where
Every meeting,
working
yep.
groups report out.
Yes,
And I think
exactly.
that's
So-
included here too, tonight.
Second question.
Yes, Chris.
So my other question was, what is the current capacity of the auditorium? Because I noticed that the auditorium sizes change as these as we go through this. So I'm wondering what it is currently to what we're looking at.
It's just under 800, so.
So currently it's just under 800?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we just made an update the other day to one of our slides, and it went from, I think, 600 to 800. So it's changes based on discussion we have and redesign from those discussions. So it's all very fluid. So again, we try to update the website as quickly as we can. But like if you have a meeting on Monday and then we have a meeting on Wednesday, like the change made with Monday, we really need the time to make sure we put something that looks good up on the website. So it may take a few days to get it updated from what we've discussed. So we try to get that done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, the target for the auditorium is 800. So it's kind of been always hovering around. So.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
So the upper 2 floors on this one, it is a 3-story stool. The upper 2 floors kind of stacked nice and evenly. Still getting, the classroom, the breakout zones. A zone on the 2nd floor here for arts and some technology classes. By the way, we will be posting videos we've recorded this week for each option where an architect in our office actually explains each of these options individually. They're about a 2 to 3 minute video each. So you don't have to just go grab a floor plan off the website and say, what am I looking at? How do I interpret this? You can actually listen to one of the architects in our office explain it just like I am right now, so that you get the full experience if you're not able to sit in this meeting or go through all of that. So if you need to rewatch it, you can do that.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
AR8 is the next option. This in particular, I want to highlight that the comment at the beginning around there you are, around the renovation or the keeping of the auditorium. We actually are keeping the auditorium in this option. So yeah, there you go. It's always great when there's a public comment and you've already got the answer. So, but yeah, this is an idea of keeping the current auditorium, although as discussed earlier, we would have to do some pretty significant renovations to it to make it handicap accessible and just give it an update technologically as well. And probably acoustically, I think there's some things we can do there. But this addition goes out northward towards the north of the site and into the existing drop-off circle. What's interesting about this option is, and I'll go to this slide and this one to show you, but there is a lower level to this classroom wing because, as I'd mentioned before, if you stand in the circle, the site kind of folds down off to the wetlands there. And so this option here does have 4 stories on this side, and it has 3 stories on this side. And it has a courtyard in the middle that allows all the natural daylight to come into all of the classrooms. One pro about this option is that you could build everything in the tan without significantly taking down existing portions of the building, although there will be, Terry and I were just talking about this beforehand, but this pinch point right here between the existing building that is probably in that range, which is the existing entryway. We'll just have to coordinate that. We've built buildings within 5 feet of an existing building, so it's not something we haven't done, but we may have to think about entry and exit at the sort of what is the front door for the duration of this option once it's under construction.
Chris,
Monica has a question.
Chris, how close does this come to Arlington Road?
Right here,
Pretty close.
this section, well, it's not any closer than the road is today. Because this is the existing road, so
Tim said the existing road.
I don't know
What?
the dimension off the top of my head.
But the end point that comes out, how many stories is that?
So
gonna
go
be?
to this,
Stories.
3 stories coming out. Okay.
But doesn't it go out into the circle?
go to slide 29, please. So, Chris, if you see this, this is the actual road. If you're looking at it, that's at the school down here.
Right here.
Yes.
So, you come out and where that sort of becomes a Y, that's the existing road.
And the entry to the circle's like right here.
Right.
Okay, but the new part of the building would be out towards Arlington Road.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And that's 3 stories, that the point,
It would literally be across the street from those houses.
right, so it's 3 stories up from that.
Yeah.
Point coming out like that.
And those houses are elevated at that point too.
Okay.
Well, not all of them.
Not all of them, but
There are some that are right down, right
No, but
there.
that's at the very end.
Yeah.
Okay.
At that, okay.
Live there, we can tell you it's not.
Okay.
All right, so that would come a lot closer to Arlington Road, and it would be 3 stories high on one side of the V and 4 stories on the other side. Thanks.
and it's 4 stories. Is it the yellow section is 4?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure that
Yep.
from all the discussions we've got in my head. All right, okay.
That's very high. I mean, 4 stories for these kids? They're gonna be riding elevators all day or going up and down stairs or what?
Not that uncommon for a high school this size.
Kids,
Okay.
they're kids.
All right, go ahead, Chris.
But yes, they'll be going upstairs and an elevator if they require one.
I don't think that'll kill them. They're young. Sorry. Any other comment real quick? Okay, go ahead, Chris.
This is the upper, so this is the lower level that connects sort of down low by the gym, and then the level 2, level 3 up here. So one side, one branch of this is a single loaded corridor, the other branch is a double loaded corridor. It's the courtyard in the middle. Yeah. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of AR8. I do think one of the conversations, because it was brought up earlier, one of the differences of this one is it likely produces an easier transition for BECC because we can build, you can see this, you build the cafeteria as part of the first phase instead of it being part of the second phase, which means you vacate the space for BECC will go sooner. And so it deals with that complication a little bit better.
Where's the front door of your school in this one?
Well, it depends on who you, we're saying it's right here. It's, do you see the auditorium? The purple auditorium just to the
Yeah.
right, it says main entry.
Oh, I see.
And, you know, we've had some good conversations with Bob and others on the facilities assessment side that suggest maybe there's a better location for main entry. And so we can study that more. It's not off the table, but right now
And where would the cafeteria be in the loading dock?
it's on the lower level.
And when you say lower level, is that street level?
It's we just talked about the 3 floors that are on sort of the Arlington Street facing side.
Yeah.
If you move that flat plane out towards the practice field, towards the parking in the practice fields up to the north, then the earth drops and there's a lower level there that's like at the level of the gyms.
Oh, I see.
walkout, basically.
Okay, but so all that area would be the kitchen, the loading dock and all of that.
And a few classrooms.
And a cafeteria.
Okay.
So, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. So in this, addition, we're effectively building majority of a high school, right? And the kids are going to move into that. They're going to move in. There's going to be a cafeteria.
Yep.
So, when I look at that, it seems more seamless for compared to AR2. And then you have this lose the auditorium for that next phase, but and you will lose the gymnasiums for a period of time because we will be renovating that section. But from an educational perspective, strictly educational perspective, you will have the majority of the high school program.
I have a question, Catherine, about AR8. Let's see, on the same floor as the wooden gym, on the same slice as the wooden gym, there's a section that says BOH. What does that stand for?
Back of house,
Back of house. Okay.
like boilers, mechanical systems, stuff like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Simon and then Zachary.
Yeah, on I think it's 29. I don't, I'm trying to figure out where the cafeteria is because I don't see it on the lower level or on level 1 or 2.
You turn around, look for a sec. Right here. Cafeteria. Kitchen.
Oh, in the other end of the class,
Yeah, underneath here.
under that first.
There.
It's in the basement.
It's the lower level.
All right, whatever.
Zachary, did you have another question?
Oh, I
Yeah.
see it. Yep.
How long would AR8 take and like what would like the school like continue during that time?
Yeah, the school operations would continue as normal for the duration, but I think the current estimates for this are that we think it would take I think it's 42 months on this one, maybe between 42 and 48, I think.
That's total. So
Yeah, it's total. So there's a build, demo, repair, site work, things like that.
I would just say, again, if you look at the website and the chart, and maybe that's changed, AR8 actually has the quickest move in. You move in to the new wing at 2 years. And the new construction, you move in after 3 years. AR2, you move in after. But AR8 has you're in the new building in 2 years, and then you start doing the phase 2 of the renovation of the gyms and in the yeah.
I think that's correct. And
Okay.
that, I think the thing that we're constantly updating is how much program are we going back to renovate? What order are we renovating
Sure.
the rest of the phases? And that's where we're trying to update durations. But I would say the move in on the 2 AR schemes and then the new schemes, the move into let's just say new classrooms, because there's other programs, not new classrooms, that's going to take further long, is probably in the 2-year range on most of these options. But the new options, you're moving into a full school, not just classrooms. On the AR2, you're moving into a very segmented portion of classrooms. In AR8, you're moving into even more, but not the full school because the rest of it has to be renovated and things like that. So that's kind of a nuance around the stepping stone of how we're seeing these unfold.
Hold on. I think Chris has a question and then Mimi, you had a question. So both Chris and then Mimi.
More of a comment, but it was going to be first that question. So I think that is an important nuance of more students would have the benefit of it because of the turnover. And so being able to experience the new classrooms. So I think that is really important for us to be able to know. And to answer a question earlier, why not the renovation project as a whole? Well, one, it was because when we originally did this, we talked about trying to get rid of modulars and the disruptions that causes to students of them completely being moved out. And I don't think we've answered that yet. So that's one of the reasons when we looked at all of these really thinking about the student experience, because that is a lot of what this committee was here for to do as well, is think of the student experience. And so a lot of those were cut out because of either adding modulars or the general disruption to students. So it's good to know when those, phases happen, because, students transitioning in and being able to experience that is good.
Thank you. And Mimi?
Yeah, so for the AR8, the gym is left as is, and the auditorium has to be tweaked, requires renovation to be
gym
made.
does too.
Everything's getting renovated, I think, for really right up to code. And I think I want to make that clear to everyone that even if something's being left in the structure and we're still going to keep it, it's still going to be
Got it.
But what I'm getting at is this,
somewhat.
to folks who find the AR options attractive because they think it will be at a lower price point. What I'm wondering is what kind of costs are we looking at down the line to maintain code or repair the gym and auditorium if we keep the essential structure? That's what I'm curious about, because I hear support for the AR options based on this idea that it will be a considerable cost saving, but structurally, if we hold on to two significant high-use buildings with, what does that mean for us down the road?
I mean, so they're going to be renovated just like you'd renovate a house. And from a structural perspective, if you look at this structurally, this building is fine. So it's going to be renovated, and it should have a useful life as the new building should do.
Okay.
So I
So
think
there wouldn't.
you're asking the cost to say
Just-
upgrade the HVAC in those areas and the lighting and the fire, the gym, right? Is that what you're
I'm
asking?
not sure what she's asking.
Right,
So
well, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to get at the root of what she's asking.
I guess it's all of that. There's this assumption that if those structures are left in place, I know what you're saying, they're going to be brought up to code and they're going to be renovated. Is there no more money associated with that for the next 30 years, 40 years? Because I'm hearing from people that these are cost-saving options, significant cost-saving options. And I want that to be reality-based. Is that really the case? Like Martha was asking in terms of the field, there's no anticipated flooding now, but 20 years from now, what can we expect? Similarly, if the premise for keeping the AR options is cost, and we're keeping intact some old structures, is that really the case? I just wanted some thoughts and comments on
So I think
that.
you're I think focused on like maintenance costs and like ongoing for that space.
I don't know, because I don't do this for a living. I don't know what kind of anticipated costs we can associate with that. So I was just wanting your professional opinion.
I would say that the costs associated with those renovated spaces is going to be just as similar as the new space. They're going to have, annual operations budgets. They're going to have preventative maintenance for all the equipment. And, that is going to be a figure. But that's going to exist in a new building, in an ad reno. It doesn't matter, that exists.
So then that argument that the AR options are more cost effective is a valid one then?
From
That
upfront
perspective.
from a dollar figure upfront, yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go with Ms. Monaco, then Doug, and then I see Jeremy. So in that order.
Mimi, I get your point, and I wonder the same thing, because not only is this going to be kind of different, but it'll be some older spaces that are renovated rather than new build stuff. And I think to have a question about whether or not it's really a cost savings in the long run is a valid
That's
question.
exactly what I'm asking, what other people have asked me, and I don't know how to answer that.
you know, I don't know the answer, but I think it's a very valid question because 20 years, 30 years, you know, you're still gonna drive up to the same gym doors and let the kids run in and, you know, do their gymnastics. So it would be different, I think, with a new facility, but cost-wise, I'm not the expert.
I would just say they don't have to be the same doors. But regardless, I think that every one of these plans counts on and requires that we keep using those gyms and those facilities. So even if we build a brand new building on the football field, we're not replacing those gyms or those locker rooms. And so if they don't last, it's going to cost us the same amount. We're going to have to update them. We're going to have to bring them up to code. We're going to use them as the varsity basketball gym and the volleyball gym and all of that. And we won't have that at any other facility. So we'll have to keep. And so if they don't last as long as the engineers tell us they'll last, we'll have to build new ones. But we're not paying, we're using that no matter what.
And then Jeremy and then Mr. Boychuk.
So, and again, as we keep going on this cost thing, because everyone knows I love to talk about money. So some of the comments I've been seeing social media wise, like, hey, it's the cost savings, it's this, it's that. There's some traffic about they're within 5 to 7% of cost parity for a new versus renovated building, which I tend to believe. You know, I think the question that still is unanswered in my mind is, you know, with the renovation option, what's the likelihood of cost overruns? Because you never really know what's going to happen until you start pulling the building down. And that's really where my concern is. And then also with NC1, you know, you start peeling that back. Where's the extra engineering cost going to come in? And could that reserve be quickly eroded? And then a cost overrun for the entire project is more likely, in my opinion. Again, I'm not sold either way, just things I'm thinking about.
And Megan.
And just talking about the gyms brought up the idea to me that the AR5 option building on the field offers us an additional gym. And I know that indoor space is at a premium for most of the year as youth sports organizations are trying to find a place to host various events. So I think that's a benefit that we should consider. And also, you know, Jeremy, to your point, I read an article recently about Lowell High School tearing apart their auditorium and the amount of asbestos mitigation and other issues that they ran into because of the number of subcontractors that were used to build auditoriums when around the time that these buildings were built. So the costs became very high, very quick. And I believe they ended up getting money from the MSBA to help cover some of that, but that's not going to be good news for us. So we really have to be careful about opening up our auditorium. And that's something that I am heavily weighing, considering these options.
Thank you.
And I'm sure if I could pull that thread, I actually kind of was looking for an answer from either, you know, Terry or Chris, like what's, in your opinion, in your experience, you know, do renovations run into cost overruns on a more frequent basis, or is a purpose-built building run into more cost overruns? I'm trying to understand that in my mind and rectify it to help, you know, add a dimension to the conversation that maybe we haven't explored.
Go ahead.
When we build budgets for projects, we will have typically bigger contingencies for ad reno projects because there's more potential of unknowns. The phrasing of it as a cost overrun is kind of like something Terry and I both wouldn't want to. Yeah, because we build the budgets to have contingencies based on those things. And I think both firms have track records of not encountering cost overruns, but we do get change orders.
I guess it would be
not the same thing.
Yeah. Where do we run into more engineering change requests? Is it an addition renovation or a purpose-built building? I understand the nuance.
Yeah, I think both have risks, right? So new construction has the risks under the ground. Like that came up last night, you know, a release of toxic something that travels in the earth, and we do the analysis and test when we're in site, and we have to deal with that. So that's a risk. You don't know what you can't see underground. You don't know what you can't see inside of a building like this, you know, that we might run into. But I think we've got a good running start on most of the information that we have, and I think that's what we'll try to build the budgets with. But I think if you're looking for a direct answer, I'd say building wise, there's more left to be determined when you open things up here that we'll get a good handle on no matter what you tell us to do. Part of the project appears to be a renovation of some sort, so we'll get a good handle on that. But there is a risk that we would need to account for in the budget building that says this pocket of money just to keep the town safe and not have to go back to town meeting or ask for more funds or anything. We would build that in.
And Doug,
So it's semantics to some degree, but Jeremy's wording helped. When we talk about the new construction, we're still talking about a fairly large renovation component.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's a new, the difference between AR8 and the new construction plans are the new construction plans include a small auditorium, smaller, I believe. And they have a gym for PE, but not for varsity sports or anything. And you still have to renovate the gyms, the locker rooms, all of those facilities, and provide them with new updated electrical and heat and air.
right here.
And you still have to renovate this end of the building and build it out for BECC. So we still face the chance of running into the renovation. There's not much difference in the same stuff has to be renovated.
Mhm.
The auditorium is the only flex one where in some plans you would tear it down and not renovate it. But every other space that's going to be renovated has to be renovated with new construction with every one of these plans. Right.
and Mrs. Pacheco.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to highlight that what I was talking about was the auditorium specifically, renovating the auditorium. That was a specific area where a lot of the contingency was beaten up. And I'm not to say that you all are not going to do a fantastic job and keep us on budget and under budget and on time,
Under budget.
but we're risking of basically not getting as much money back from that contingency, just by renovating something that's a risky piece of the puzzle. And that's all I mean to say. So not throwing any.
Ms. Monica.
Why would the gym, if we had a new building, why would the gym only be used for PE? Can it be used for anything else?
Yeah, it could be. And we're trying to purposely size it so that it's a full-size court. It just wouldn't have as much seating. So
Oh, but it could be used.
Yeah,
No, so the idea would be that you would have a full-size basketball court, but, say in an elementary school, you might have you've got the two sidelines, right?
Yeah.
You might have 16 feet and then 6 feet. Well, we might not have that, right? I don't know what the square footage is.
But the point is, it would be another community.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. And you would be able to, it would be a decent sized space. It's just you wouldn't be having a high school basketball game there
I think it's
Why
referred
not?
to
It's a
that.
High school.
No, but I think it's referred
because
to.
there won't be seating.
It's not big enough.
Why don't you make it big enough?
it could, well,
It's going to cost more. You're right. You could
We're constrained.
it could be big enough.
make it as big as you
It
want.
just like if you're gonna host MIAA tournaments or something like that.
You
it's
wouldn't do
not
that
gonna
in-
be in that facility because we're not gonna put 1,500 seats in there. We're probably gonna put 500.
So you couldn't have your all-town band concert.
You're right.
There's just like you're purposefully trying to say, if we can bring down the costs a little bit, then we can. But that's like, if you guys said no, that we want it to be that full blown thing, then
Well, what if we weren't keeping the gyms on this building?
I would tell you probably need to build a little bit bigger of a gym in the actual high school.
Okay.
And again, if this were an MSBA project, based on a high school of 1,000 or 1,100 kids, we would only get one gym and a certain amount of square feet anyway. So
And would it be the size that's planned if we would do a new building?
again, the high school one we'd have to look at Fox Hill, we added 1,000 square feet for,
Right, I got
we would
that.
have more runoff space, but I don't know what the.
I need to check what size we've drawn.
6,000 and 9,000.
What is it?
6,000 and 9,000.
For high school's
Fox Hill.
9,000?
Yeah, so Fox Hill is like 6,800, so we went over that 1,000 to get to that little, went from 12 to 16 feet and then added the 4 feet on the ends. Sorry, through the chair. And then, I believe, if I'm saying it correctly, that the high school through an MSBA project would allow for 9,000 square feet for a build.
Do you, Bob, and I should probably know this too, what's the existing size of the main wood gym?
Oh, so that's like 13,000, it's about 12,000 square feet right now.
Right.
So it's a 2 full size and has 1,500 seating in it.
Right.
So it would not be allowable through MSBA project.
No, not remotely.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, Chris, you can move on.
NC1 is this one, located on the student lot and traversing over the existing road next to the backside of the building. This one,
Fix the glitch.
glitch in the matrix. And so the big kind of things to note about this one are the long, narrow skinniness of it, and then the vertical stacking of the project. Again, 4 floors isn't the end of the world, but if 3 stories in AR8 relative to Arlington was a point of conversation, this one has 4 stories relative to Arlington. So just to highlight that, because we just talked about it. We would logistically have to deal with the loss of student parking for the duration of the project, and I don't think that's a very small thing to consider. And then this one is also very close to wetlands on both sides, and so
And it's real close to the entrance coming in to like the street that comes, the current,
Yeah.
where you drive in, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then what else should I note on this one? Those are the highlights of this one. I think EE and I think the gym, same conversation we just had. One thing to note is the science center has been included in all of the options as like in all of the new options, because we had identified that as something that is critically adjacent with the school. So if we're moving the school away from this physical plant, we're bringing the science center with us. You can see that in the bottom right there.
Dr. Conti has a comment or question.
Again, just same comment I had before. If the site's like an hourglass, we're putting big new construction 4-story building right in the middle of the hourglass with only one entrance and exit on one side. So I think for the abutters to say, are there going to be other egresses or entrances? I'm not sure how we could build this building on this site without opening up Sunset or some other way to get people on and off the site on the other side of the hourglass. So again, not my area. The CM at risk contractor would need to make that determination. But I think just getting the people that we get on this site and off this site every day, I think this would be a problem. Not, again, not for the programs, but for just the movement on the site.
Chris, go on.
This one's NC4.
I'm sorry, Jeremy, I didn't see you.
Just one question's been burning with me with NC1 is, so I'm kind of living this right now with some of the other projects I'm involved with, is how close are we to the wetland buffer zone? And I'm just really concerned that with wetlands on both sides within, 10 or 20 feet, it's going to present massive engineering challenges that, quite frankly, are going to add significant cost to this project.
Yeah, so this one is, I think it's teetering right around the 100-foot on all sides, except for the left side that's closest to the school, the existing school. I don't think we're inside of the 50-foot on any of this. So it's within that zone of doable, but with conditions kind of thing. So.
Thank you. Hey, Chris, go on.
NC4 is relatively unchanged from previously. I think one thing to note on this one is that there are wetlands on the front edge And the site is trying to take advantage of already existing ingress components towards the field. That's what the site plans are doing. And attempting to not take over or remove any isolated wetlands that are in this area. This area was flagged as part of the NRAD. So we do have that data. We know what that is.
And where the cafeteria is, how many stories are on that side?
That is a 2-story. You can see
That's 2 stories on that side. Okay.
it's actually 3. This is the sort of bit on the 3rd floor. I don't know if you can see that 3rd floor science center. In this option is the 3rd floor above the cafeteria. On the 2nd floor, the cafeteria has a little bit of a higher void in it, and so that's usually nice for cafeterias of this size, is to get some scale volumetrically, but not a requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask,
Yep.
Sorry.
Science Center has, Wendy, have they had input? It's like 3rd floor.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
They bring animals in and out and take them to the elementary schools and be a fun elevator ride, bring in whatever, everything they have to bring in and out.
Let's bring the
Outside section for the owl and the
falcon down. Yeah.
Let's bring the owl down 3 floors.
Yeah, this is a layer that once we get honed in on which option we want to go with, we'll start going back. We had preliminary meetings with all of these programs. We'll go back and we'll say, maybe 3rd floor is not ideal. We can move some classrooms there and then move the science center down. We can find the right spot, as we've been doing with the teachers, or not the teachers, the people in the programming and learning tech working group. It came up that it was like, hey, it's ideal if guidance is separated from the actual main office because of the way they want those programs to work. So we've been trying to revise all the options to separate those out. And so even though they're both considered admin to some degree, we're trying to find ways to separate those out, and it's not too late for that. So thank you for that. That's absolutely what we will be doing, as well as meeting schematic design. We always set up programming meetings with department heads and things like that. So not only do we do that with Science Center, but we'll do that with math and English and those folks, and say, hey, is there anything off? Science, is there anything off?
There's a tremendous amount of meetings that happens once you get your preferred solution, and if you think we have meetings now, it does ramp up, and we want to take advantage of the school year while everybody's here to ensure that we get that feedback and incorporate that into the schematic design. So it's somewhat crucial in the process.
This is the site plan for NC1. We've kind of talked about that a lot, but the idea really here is that potentially cars would come in and go all the way around the building and then back up and be able to drop off at the front end of the building. And what that does is give you like almost twice as long of a queue that you have now. Cause like Miss Monica was saying, is like you come in, people will stop at that front circle and then it just gets backed up. I got caught just the other day sitting right by the student lot waiting in a line of cars that I thought was moving, but then it turns out they weren't after I was getting beeped out a lot. And then I could go around them. And then that's when the bus came around me and showed me how to do it. And so this would actually like double that length where cars can go around and hopefully alleviate some of that. The yellow line would be potentially buses and separate those two. So again, not set in stone, but just looking at ideas on how you traffic. NC5 is here. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Is this going to be enough parking close enough to the school? If, so it's what, 63, so it's 93 spaces? Is that something that's going to be a logistical? We have more staff than that.
It was all figured out.
We had a conversation about that, I think 2 meetings ago. And it was almost equidistant for the student parking lot to the building.
Yeah, I don't think I'm worried about the students, I'm worried about staff.
Sorry,
Yeah, no, the students, respectfully, the students can walk, they get parking on campus, that's great. You know,
Continue
it's always
to-
a priority, but
Continue to try to maximize that, but it is like the nature of the trade-off is that there's tight spots everywhere. And so I think we'll keep trying to get as many spots as we can for student or for teachers and staff near the building.
I would see the student lot becoming
A
a
teacher
teacher
lot.
lot, and the students have the privilege of being able to bring their car. They're going to have to walk a little bit.
Ms. Simon?
Also, although I'm sure there's more than 76 staff, a number of the people who use the current lot up by the cafeteria up behind here are not high school staff. So they would be working in the building that they would be next to if they stayed up there. So it wouldn't be the full number that we have now in that staff parking lot. It may not be full amount, but there's a variety of things. So.
Thanks for pointing that out, Martha. Go ahead, Chris. Yep. That Chris, not that
Yeah.
Chris.
Excuse me, NC5, shown here, so this is kind of the first one that was the shape and form of it was really trying to address what Martha brought up earlier about orientation of classrooms. And this is, you can see NC1 here is still the classrooms are kind of facing east and west. But the whole intent of NC5 was to see if we could get the proper orientation for classrooms oriented north-south, even radiused a bit towards the path of the sun. And this is like, if we take that idea and just run with it, this is kind of what results. That's why this building is this way. It has 3 stories. Both NC4 and NC5 have the ability to create a presence on Cambridge Street. If that is a win or not, I can't tell you, but that is the reality of those 2 options. And again, like we said, they have, gymnasium, they have auditoriums. We're going to be targeting 800. Right now we were at 703. Probably can get the extra 100 in there. So this site plan is one that we're showing, and it could die, it may not die. I don't know what to tell you about it, but the conversation in the site logistics was, if you put a building on Varsity Field and then you have the student lot on the opposite side of the entry road and you've got students constantly trying to cross, like, what is that safety concern? How do we manage that? And so we just took another look at, if we flipped the road and the parking, they're all already paved, they're already flat. If we just reorient where those traffic zones are and aren't, you can see how that could end up with like a rotary down there, and then the student lot is actually isolated on the side of the road that you want it on, which creates nice pathways to it that don't cross roads. And it's a little bit, it's probably equal parking around the building, but it creates the scenario where you can get to the other parking by pathway without crossing roads. So we thought that was a nice win. I don't know that it'll end up this way at the end of the day, but it's at least an initial thought starter to say, what if we thought about things a little bit differently in that way? But we're showing it to you tonight for the first time. We're not asking for any of these options, don't have to be committed to a specific site reality at the moment. These are just meant to be kind of studies to pique your interest and show you different things that could be available to you as you go. So it's just one thing to highlight, that these working group meetings do mean something. And when something's brought up, we investigate it and we bring it back for the group to see and look at. The bit about the renovation portion, we've talked about that a lot. This slide is really talking about the program that we can envision being left up at this end of the building, which is a big chunk of BECC. It allows it to expand a little bit. And then you still have BCAT, district admin, the welcome center for central admin itself, and then some professional development and spaces like that. And then you do have some future tenant availability should other town departments or other things be needed on the second floor. We're showing that could just, as part of the project, we would gut it, we would make it ready, kind of like if you think of a vanilla box, like mall space or something, just open and ready. And then if a new department wants to come, they just need to do their part to fit in it. So that's the idea for that. We talked about cost a lot. Just a point of note that as part of the PSR process, which are probably 50 to 75% of the way done or through now, depending on if you want to extend the process or not. But we're doing updated cost estimates. We're sending those out tomorrow or Monday to get a new round of cost estimates. I expect that these numbers will change because since we did these last models, you all have told us you need to keep all the non-high school programs active. You need to make sure we keep some of these ad renos going. And so we need to do another cost check. And we'll have that data ready for you at the next meeting in March.
Can I ask a question?
And yep.
Chris, at the next meeting, I know there's a lot of interest in AR2, AR8.
Yep.
And one of my concerns is the disruption factor. So at the next meeting, could we have some sort of an idea or discussion about the disruption factor?
You mean like phasing and stuff like that?
Yeah,
Yep.
you know, so we'd know like how much disruption to school while it's going on.
Yep.
And then when the kids move, what are they missing out on and those kinds of things?
Sure. Yep. We'll do that for all of them. We'll do phasing diagrams.
Okay,
And then kind of talk you through that as a specific agenda.
okay, thank you.
I think that helps us, again, part of the decision-making process, right? So,
And someone asked for sort of an idea of what the building might look at in a, like a snapshot if it was built.
like a,
Can we come up some sort of a rendering at all?
In the biz, we call those renderings.
Yeah, well, I said rendering. Yeah.
But if I'm honest with you, it's early for that. Like, I don't want you to make decisions based on appearance because we can make a building look however we want to make it look. And we just haven't modeled them yet.
Yeah,
Modeled them
okay.
enough to build these 3D like extrusion masses,
Yeah.
but we haven't done the work on showing you window fenestrations and doors and
Yeah, I
colors
get
and
it.
all that. And I think that I appreciate the question and the heart of it, but I think it's too early to be going that level, in my opinion. But if this committee said, don't show up here next time without renderings, then we'll do it. The
Did
client,
you,
thinks, but
did you do Woburn?
yes.
Would it resemble any of these options?
Yeah, yes, it
Could.
could. It could. It could also resemble Billerica or Lexington that's going to be built. It could resemble anything. Like that's the
Yeah, no, I mean Woburn as it is, the new high school over there. Are any of these designs similar to that one?
No.
Okay.
But they could be. Like,
No,
I don't want to be. I'm not trying to be evasive. I'm just saying, like, we can literally put any facade, any.
I don't mean the
fenestration-
facade, I mean like the shape of the building.
yeah, I
No,
think people, I
that's
think
different
for the-
because it's
I think
a-
what that's what she's looking for is like, you know how you have the 3D model here?
Yeah.
I think people, like when you're looking at these, right, it's all flat, right?
Yeah.
I think people just trying to, even if you don't put windows and doors, it's like, take the shape of that building and maybe put it on the map in a 3D so you can kind of really see how it's going to look. I know you guys just did a video, right? Did you
Yes,
do
we
something
did.
with BCAT? It's a 5-minute or so video with all the different placements on this particular 3D model so people can kind of see that. So that's kind of a start for that. And I don't know if you can show us what people are asking for. I mean, I don't want to make it a mandate you show, you do
Yeah.
that before you come to the next meeting, but maybe you can come up with like one example and show it to us and we can say, yeah, that's kind of what we're looking for. That's not going to work. I hate to get,
Let's work on it.
yeah, let's
Just-
try something. Yeah.
Does the Woburn building have like stuff like this and spaces in the middle and, or is it just a building like Girls
More of-
Latin?
It's like more of a long format that has like some wings coming off of it, like 3 wings, think of like a skeleton key or something shape. But similar ideas. I think we can probably get a little bit further down the road of visualization, but the commenter specifically was like, well, is it a New England colonial style? Or is,
Oh,
I was
yeah,
like,
no,
I
no,
can't
no.
build that part,
I
but
think
like,
we have this idea in our head that that it might look a little odd with the ad reno compared to a new build, and looking at what that might look like might help.
Right, so for example, if that point comes out like in the circle, right, and you're the street right here, and you're gonna be staring at 4 stories out your front door, what's that gonna look like, right? Right, so I think kind of
No,
that's,
like 4 stories.
I know, but it's, you wanna kind of see it, you know, before you see it. That's what everyone decides on, so, yeah, I get it, Ms. Simon.
I, I was just thinking, there's a lot of information tonight and it's been very helpful. And there's been mention that we were hoping to narrow our choice in March. And I'm wondering if we want to consider having another meeting either before the March one or have 2 meetings in March. And I'd like to suggest that might be helpful because there's still all this information. And for example, are we going to go back and look at slide 40 because what's up now is 41 and there's, you know, we don't necessarily need to talk about cost tonight, but I had questions.
Martha, I was gonna say, we'll talk to Dr. Conti about what you were, a possible additional meeting, and then you said you had the questions on the costs.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think there're just still a lot of pieces of information. And then the last thing is I'm not making a motion, but I wanted to suggest that we think about it maybe at the next meeting, consider whether we want to keep looking at NC1. It doesn't seem to meet most of our requirements, and a lot of people have expressed concerns about it. So I want to put that out on the
No,
table.
it's definitely on the table.
As a, well, but we haven't had that conversation in this group.
We want to do it at the next meeting because I think
That's fine.
there was internal discussion.
A lot of people like that.
Not internal discussion, but yeah, a lot of people like that. And
Okay.
we
Yeah.
kind of thought about putting on the agenda tonight when we were talking about the agenda, but because I felt that there were so many people in the community that didn't know about all the options, I didn't want to have people find out all of them last night and go, oh, we're voting one off tonight, right?
That makes
So I wanted
sense.
to give people a chance to digest.
And that's, you know, I don't feel we need to have a motion tonight. I just think if
So-
we want to look at it
Yep.
and, I strongly support having more than one meeting, either this month or next month, or maybe both, if we really want to make these kinds of decisions, because there's still a lot of information that people are asking questions about that we're, you know, I think Chris's suggestion is really valuable about what would it be like for the students to do this Reno ad proposal. Thank you.
So again, were you done, Chris? I think we got through everything.
These are the,
Except for the last-
you know, there's comments earlier from Mr. Davison about the durations on the website. These are our current updated thinkings on the website or on the durations. And so realizing, you know, things get updated over time. This is the current information. This will be posted on the website. This is the stuff that I refer to. So AR2 being the longest, 48 months, and our current projections, AR8 being 42 months. This is shovel in the ground to contractor offsite. So the duration to classroom occupation is different in that, to your point. So
I think it might be worthwhile to
fine tune that.
Put an asterisk or something about like move-in date for students.
Yep.
Because I think that is useful.
Mhm.
You know, when we say it's probably 24 to 28 months. Okay, but AR2, you still got 20 months of construction going on after the kids move in, and that's not insignificant. Whereas, you know, with NC5, you know, those kids are all going to move over in, call it 24 to 28 months, and then they're going into the back here and doing work, but the kids won't be impacted by that at all. If you see what I mean, because it's kind of, there's a real separation there. So anyway.
Thank you, Chris.
So can I, one thing that we're not going to spend much time talking about tonight, but I just wanted to make sure I at least introduce it, is this document that was in the printed pages. It's the owner's project requirements. and also known as a basis of design document. This is really focused at a sustainability look at the project. And so the sustainability working group has been fine tuning this along with our sustainability consultants, and it is developed specifically about initiatives that we might want to include in a potential project that'll start to come out in the schematic design phase. And so right now is the time where we start to bring that forward. And so eventually this committee will need to sort of adopt this as its document, but we wanted to, the working group felt like it was time that you all see it and we bring it up at a future meeting for conversation. And so we're just putting this in your hand to read through, make highlights, maybe write the questions that you don't understand what we're talking about on it. And then we'll put it on an agenda item in a future meeting to kind of explain it in more detail and go through it, page flip, if you will. But that's what that's intended to be.
Thank you. Working group reports?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, but Doug, I didn't see
Talking a
you.
lot tonight. I
Go ahead.
apologize. When you do that, people are asking a lot about the cost of each thing. Can we kind of tie costs to, I mean, there's things sustainability wise that we have to do, that we'd like to do, and that would be awesome. Can we try to tie cost to each one of those? Because I know that's going to be a question.
Yeah, we'll try to get you some clarity on most of that with the next round of cost estimates.
Thank you.
There may be some detail we can't get to, but we'll get you as much as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. And Ms. Simon?
So in terms of slide 40, can you just label the ad reno has two different numbers, and can you just tell us which ad reno is the 313 million and which ad reno is the 271, and likewise for the new buildings?
It's not representative of a specific option the way it's presented here. It's
okay.
saying the least expensive ad reno was 271 million. The most expensive version is 313, but that's just saying an ad reno is going to cost, based on the options you have on the table right now, is likely going to cost you somewhere between 271 and 313 based on what's on the table.
So there's no differentiation between
There is
2
in
and
other,
1 and 8?
there
There
is
is.
in other documents. We tried to distill it for
Okay.
the sake of this and the video that we presented to say,
Mhm.
if you want the sort of pulled out detail,
Uh-huh,
that's available on the
on the
website.
website, okay.
But we're trying to distill this for the people that want the Cliffs Notes versions and say, hey, I can see a renovation only is going to be 330. The ad renos are blue,
Yeah.
the news are green. But we do have that data separated out and nuanced.
And what tab is that under in the website? Financial reports or something?
Yep, so there's, in the design documents.
Yeah.
No, actually, there's a project finances section
Okay,
that has, each of the options broken down.
okay, thank you.
We did ask to add that tab to make it easier to find the finance.
Ask to what?
We add the finance tab. that
Yes, it is gonna change.
It's all going to be
All gonna change
updated
and updated. anyway,
relatively
but
soon.
Okay.
soon.
Few weeks.
Yeah.
By the next meeting.
Yep.
I wouldn't, yeah. it takes
Okay,
a little-
not relatively soon, by the next meeting.
And working groups, updates, reports.
Right, so I put this slide in here to give anyone on any of these groups kind of an update on what we've been discussing over the last few weeks. So when it comes to community outreach, I know that you've been attending and maybe just touch on, because, well, I can talk or you
No,
can talk.
I,
for me.
again, I think it kind of alluded to it, but I think we do want to definitely schedule an abutters only meeting. And I think we discussed towards the end of the month, and it's going to be both virtual and in person, partially because I'm out of town, but, and I want to make sure that I can be a part of that. But it's the only date that we thought, would work between all the other town meetings and everything else that everyone's attending. And then after last night's meeting, I felt kind of, pretty strongly, we want to try and maybe have one more community meeting like we did last night. As we get more information and update and move along, I think it would be very beneficial for that. So, other than that, again, we still encourage people to go to the Thought Exchange. I believe we're also going to put a survey out to the students. We're going to try and do that and see what options they like and educate them on, the 5 that we currently have and kind of let them get their input too. Because again, they're living and breathing today's, what's happening today. But I think they have a different perspective than we as adults that, again, the upcoming children who will actually be a part of whatever version we come up with, I think they kind of have a different perspective. So I think it'll be kind of interesting to get input from the students as well. Chris. So again, did you want to add on the community?
Well, I just wanted to ask, how do we plan on reaching out to the abutters? Because
We're sending a letter out to them like we did. We have a list of all the abutters.
Okay.
Within, I think it's what's the list you have that we do?
300.
300 feet, yeah.
Conservation one.
So that, yeah, the conservation. So that's
And-
that's the same one we sent out. Yeah.
And so Chris, it's a public meeting.
Yep.
Right, that we're inviting abutters, but anybody.
No, I'm just wondering for the communication,
Yeah.
so it's very clear that we're making that specific, because
Yes.
again, we're all feeling that we're being very transparent, but there's other feelings out there, and just
Yep,
for
understood.
that sole purpose of, for the people that's still listening, great for you, is how we're reaching out and communicating. It's not just on social media, it's not just on this, it's, that we're making that active effort.
Correct. And I think, we've discussed some other ways of communicating with the community at large, not just the abutters, but other people who may not be aware. If there's another mailing that we can come up with, and it's just, we may discuss that in a future meeting, but those are things that have just been kind of mentioned. Yeah.
We've also reached out to the Burlington Buzz.
Yes.
So she's been great with
Yep.
getting information out too, so.
Yep.
I have to
Other
leave
avenues.
Sorry, that's okay. So that's, yeah.
Make one suggestion. I thought of this yesterday. There were 2 high school kids who spoke yesterday at the forum. Yes, one of them was mine. And they felt too shy to express their opinion. Also because they recognized that there was finances attached to each one, and they didn't want to be sucked into that when they didn't fully understand each plan. I was thinking, if the high school is going to solicit feedback from kids, in addition to asking them what their preferred plan is, because I don't think a lot of them will fully understand what is involved, asking students, what do you want to see in a high school? Like, what are your 5 top things or 10 top things? I think that would get some really meaningful feedback.
So again, Mimi, there was a lot of visioning done when this process first started. So I think kids were asked a lot about that, as well as the educators. I think Mark, he's on the call, I think was planning on doing a Lex Block presentation for any student that wanted to get some more information. So I think he's going to try to drag more people
That
in.
would be good.
So
Yeah, Chris and I are planning on March 5th to do a presentation for students during the school day during Flex Block. And then afterwards, give out the survey for them to provide feedback on the different options.
So then that just, again, since last night's meeting, we thought, this would be an interesting, something to involve everyone. Okay, I know it's getting late, so.
So I, many of you are in some of these groups. What I can tell the entire group is that for the next meeting, we've been talking about this, the matrix. And the matrix is basically a way of ranking each of the options in relation to one another on a whole host of different areas, including all of the working groups. And so that is going to be a part of the next presentation. And it just gives you a visual like, oh, this one does appear to be a better option for us. And that will be another tool that you'll have in the box to help make a decision. So.
Thank you, Terry.
Mhm.
All right.
So we're not doing the reports from each group, or
Well, I'm
trying to save some time?
Is there someone,
I was trying to
someone
say-
else want to speak up about on any of the
Happy
other
to-
groups?
I'm
Most
still here, so-
sustainability, I assume?
Yeah, just a quick question. Can you tell on the sustainability issue, I know to look at geothermal, we need to do test wells. And I want to know if the reason why we have a test well, and so does that mean then we have to wait till we know location? Because the test well would be in a different place based on whether we chose the Ad Reno or the new buildings. Is that why we aren't moving forward with that at this point? Okay, thank you.
And again, through the chair, just for programming, I just, sorry, it's really important to me for 20 seconds is
No problem.
there are some things mentioned last night. I just want the committee to know that, again, people can have whatever opinion and feelings they want. It's sort of like the noise background issue. I mean, the background noise is the background noise. And you still might think it's too loud or too soft. Our athletic participation numbers are actually up, not down. So I just want to make sure that's a factual statement for this group to say. We actually are seeing more students participating and we're adding program. So I think that was a misstatement. Someone may still not like the option, but I'm saying the truth is we are increasing that. And also it was mentioned that we're losing students to private schools. Again, we're not seeing that in the numbers. We track that every single year. We show that with the school committee. We are seeing roughly the same numbers. So again, if we can share that. So we're not hemorrhaging kids. I think I can tell you, like, the last 4 years have been to private schools, 15, 15, 20, 12. And then to Voc Techs has been what, 30, 38, 34, 33, 32. I mean, we're trending sort of right exactly sort of where we would normally expect. So again, we're not hemorrhaging kids. There were some also comments made about our academic performance, and I would just need to know what the measure is. I don't know what it is. And all I'm saying is we'll present facts if people have questions, and they can still not approve a project, but that's fine. But again, our numbers are up and we're not losing kids. So that was just, I think.
And I think you've mentioned too that with Shawsheen that they didn't, that we see more kids going there. It's because they now accept more children too.
Well, when I first got here, they were only taking 50% of the kids who applied. We
Right.
worked really hard. Now almost 100% of our kids are going.
Right.
So, but that's a positive. So
Exactly.
we've really worked to make that relationship better.
Yeah.
So again, we're not hemorrhaging kids, and we have really good participation because the community doesn't charge fees for sports. And the whole point of it is to have more kids participate. So we're seeing that.
Thank you, Dr. Conti.
Yes.
And anyone else from one of the working groups that wants to speak up? Okay. Again, I apologize. It's just getting late and I know people want to get home. So the next item is construction delivery.
Methods. Yep. So I'll keep this short and sweet. I've introduced this in a much bigger presentation with the financial working group, although I don't think you were there, but I've discussed this with you before. So there's two different methods. My advice to you is to look at these slides. The design bid build is a method that you're actually utilizing at Fox Hill. What I will tell you here is that I think with any ad reno options, we're going to recommend CM at risk. And you'll go to the second slide, and it's a qualifications and cost base. It's a little different in terms of the contract type. What it allows us in particular is to bring a CM on board earlier, and they basically assist with constructability, phasing, and they provide an estimate. And so to the extent we're going to go to town meeting, it's a builder saying, this is what we think it's going to cost. And I absolutely believe in the environment we are in that we are going to want that. And I think we're going to want that for any of the options. I will say that if we were to build on the field and it's an isolated site, and then we're just coming over here and the kids are moving in, we can look at design bid build. In order to do CM at risk, you actually have to submit basically an application to the OIG to say, hey, we're trying to do this, and it's a statutory period for them to sign off on it. There's no obligation for us to do CM at risk if we do that application. So I would like to submit that application so that we can get the ball rolling. We are far from bringing a CM on board or making a decision on that. But I would like to get that process because I think it's like 60 days to just get that taken care of. And Rachel's already prepared that documentation. We can just submit it. And then after we, I think as we narrow down these choices, we can spend a little more time on this. I can bring a little more information, and then we can make a decision to say, yes, we'd like to go CM at risk or design bid build. So I'm going to leave it at that because I know it's late, but this is a topic. There's slides here
And we can go through that at our next
Meeting,
meeting.
you're okay with us putting? it
Yeah,
on the vote?
I am.
Okay. All right, that's what I wanted to find out.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other topics that are not reasonably?
I'll
okay.
just touch on, and because I know it was mentioned, but Chris, Eric, myself, we have done a video now with this model that will likely be on BCAT. My guess is Monday because we need to look at it. And it basically just shows, and some of you have probably seen Chris do this. It's a really interesting way of, from a 3D perspective, seeing the different options and pulling the pieces out. And that will be on BCAT. I encourage everyone here to watch it, but certainly from the public's perspective, it gives you like the pieces. And I think visually will help folks understand what's being proposed with each option. So that was the only thing I had.
Thank you. All right, and then any other public comment? Anybody online? Yes, Sharon.
Want me to come up there? You want me to stay here?
You want to come up, please? Because it's hard to hear.
Right now, there's no one online with their hand raised.
There's a hand up online?
No one.
No one? Okay, thank you.
Right
Sorry.
now.
How many minutes do I have?
Give your 3.
Sharon Laurie. I live on Arlington Road, Precinct 3. So, as I said yesterday, I feel a little bit better. I feel that you're trying to be more transparent. I'm concerned about what you call the little hole, because I'm thinking the little hole, why can't it simply be a storage space? Or especially whatever renovation, new design you use, you could probably put a lot of the materials there, and that could be functional. After that's done, your snow blowers and all of your heavy duty equipment, it could possibly go there. So the space is being utilized properly. I'm concerned that I'm almost hearing that you're going to open up one of the streets based on what design you choose to move forward with, to have cars coming and going. I think most of you know, most of these side streets around here are very narrow, especially Arlington Road. Sunset, it's up and down some nice steep hills, so that's going to be problematic in the wintertime. I'm concerned that you think any of your projects, there's not going to be a significant disruption factor. Whether you build on the high school field, it's in perfect shape. You're still going to have cars and trucks and people coming in and out of that for months on end, years on end. There's still a disruption with the noise level. None of that goes away. So to say simply you should build on the varsity field because it's less disruptive to the students, I think is not a reasonable statement, in my opinion. I think that the residents, the abutters, are telling you they spent $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 because of flooding issues. Please listen to these people. It's their homes. They cannot continually fix a flooding issue because you're going to place a stadium in their backyards. I think a high level of sensitivity needs to be given to them. And I think they were kind enough and they came out and forced to show you, to tell you how they truly feel. No one has a bunch of money to be spending left and right. And I think what you also heard from everyone is they're trying to support you. Help them so they can help you. We want this thing to go through, but it needs to be a reasonable plan for everyone. And the parents, not only the students you need to think about, it's the parents that are footing this bill. And so if I could ask anything, it would be to maintain a high sensitivity level to what the parents are saying. The kids are only going to be in this school for 4 years. The parents like me, it's technically my retirement home. I'm not going anywhere. And I want to live here in peace. And my time is up, so I'm going to behave and stop. But thank you. Please listen to us because we're here to work in conjunction with you guys, if you will allow us to.
Thank you, Sharon. Anyone else? Okay. So, you want the next slide?
Yeah. So we should have upcoming meetings. We've talked about in a butters meeting. I've proposed a date of February 26th at 6:30, and it would be a hybrid WebEx. So this is a new meeting. So I think you should probably just agree, or I don't know if you need to make a motion.
I don't think,
but-
I don't think we need to vote on it, actually. I think as a chair, I can say we're having a meeting.
So
So-
I've also heard, to Ms. Simon Martha's point, so we have this SBC meeting on March 13th, and we're going to be coming to that with, again, a fulsome information. And, what I'm hearing is we're going to be presenting costs, revised costs at that. And I don't think engaging with the public before that time is going to be meaningful without those numbers. And so what unfortunately I'm going to propose to you is that during that following week of the 13th, we have to have a public meeting. And the following week after that, we should be having another SBC meeting, ideally to come to a conclusion and make a recommendation. And so I throw that out there as a proposal, but I think if we want to keep some semblance of schedule, we should be doing that.
Okay, thanks, Terry. So we'll talk about a date in March for another community meeting, and we'll get that agreement and we'll put it up somewhere. So again, the meetings are etched in stone again. Meeting March 13th at 6:30, April 10th at 6:30. Community meeting, as we said, to be determined. That date, we'll figure it out. The other solid one is May 8th and June 12th. And again, we continuously are having our working group meetings weekly. And so we post a lot of that information on the website as well. So may I have a motion? Oh, sorry.
So I'm just wanting to clarify. So Terry, you're suggesting that after we schedule our next community meeting
So I think, and I
before
haven't,
the 13th, or
quite honest with you, I haven't discussed this with the chair yet. So
Okay.
she's probably looking at me like, what are you talking about, Terry? But the 13th is our next meeting.
Right.
I'm hopeful that we can have a public meeting the week of the 17th, and that
Okay.
if folks are in agreement, that we would potentially have an SBC meeting on the 27th of March.
on the 27th. So that's a potential
And
placeholder.
I think, we can send out a Google poll, or, Catherine and I just need to discuss it, but
Thank you.
we need to, like, the once a month isn't working right now to get us where we need to be. So if we need to meet more often, that's what we should do. We need to get out to the public more often. That's what we're going to do. And I know the sentiment was we need three months more. And I can argue that we actually are like at the precipice, and you guys are taking in a lot of information from everybody, and it's not going to stop. So in actual fact, it's almost 6 weeks from now that you have until you come to a final decision. And I think if we can get that in our minds, that's a win.
And again, Bob,
I just had a quick question, sorry. Regarding the abutters meeting, do we have a location? Is that here?
It would be here, and it's going to be WebEx. So,
heard that part,
I
yes.
will certainly be here, but I think I'm not asking anybody. It's basically remote, but I'll be here, and I think Catherine's away, but we'll just figure out who's going to be where.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about capacities. That's my only concern.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Chris.
I just,
So if we can follow up, please.
Yeah.
I know this is fluid, but I'd just make one slight suggestion change to what you were proposed is, that yes, there's a lot of meetings and it's important, but if we were to do like the week, March 27th, I think what we found here from having community meeting and then this we had a lot to talk about and a lot to process.
Right.
And I think April 10th would be better for a vote
Okay.
rather than, because we still want to hear from the community. People will still want to
Yeah.
and then it gives us that next time if there's any additional questions rather than, and then hear what the community is saying, give us a little bit more time. That gives 1, 2, 3, 4 meetings.
Yeah.
That are all public that they can come to give their input before then rushing it and then saying, okay, then April 10th, that's when we will make that decision.
Thank you, Chris. Did you have okay. So anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Any second? No, there's no discussion. Oh, did you have a question?
Oh, no. I was gonna second.
He's like, I want to go to bed. Oh,
Thank you.
all right.
And I'm gonna say all in favor. Aye.
Aye.
Take a vote. Hey, this meeting's adjourned.